Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another stream with Swaggle Hoss. And in this stream, we got a great show lined up for you guys here tonight. Two amazing guests in the comic book YouTube space. I'm going to be joined by Ryan from Automatic Comic Books and Drew from Como's Comic Books. And we're going to be talking about kind of the recent heritage auction, the Platinum auction, here kicking off the comic book market in 2023, and a lot of cool sales to talk about. Some highs, some lows, some big sales, some small sales. But we're going to kind of break it all down, and it'll be fun to talk about. And we might jump around. We'll talk other news stories going on in the market, some other interesting things to discuss that are not related to the heritage auctions, but still related to comic book buying habits. So I'm really, really excited to do that. But before I fully get into it, let me do just a little bit of housekeeping, before I bring on our special guest tonight. Now, I have to kind of plug myself a little bit, and talk about my Kickstarter comic book. Yeah, that is right. I am sponsoring my own video tonight. I'm going to talk about my comic book that I have coming out very, very soon. This is a book I wrote called Sanity, and it is my first comic book written work. So I will be launching this campaign very, very soon. And the reason why I talk about it is because I think it's soon enough to talk about where I'm happy to sort of start promoting it a little bit. So if you guys are interested in checking this out, or at least keeping tabs with like the pre-launch page, certainly when everything is ready, I will do more of a marketing push and talk about it more. But it's a kind of a classic Lovecraftian pulp adventure. If you like your sort of Agatha Christie, detective style of story in the Lovecraft space, I think you'll definitely enjoy this one. I'm very, very proud of it. I'm super excited to share it with you guys, and it'll be launching very, very soon. So definitely go check that out when you get a chance. And I also got to give a shout out to a sponsor of the channel, Torpedo Comics. If you guys don't know, Torpedo Comics is based out of Las Vegas, Nevada. They got stores in the Southern California area as well. They got an online store. They do claim sales on their Instagram. And if you use my promo code in the description, you can save 10% off on any purchase you make at their store. So shout out to them for the sponsorship. Go check out my Kickstarter page, which is in the description if you guys want to check that out. But let's check in with the chat before we bring on our special guest. Just see who is hanging out with us here today. Agent 37. All right, it's time. Hi, everyone. What's going on, Agent 37? Good to see you, man. Jason, whoop, whoop. Let's go. Ryan, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Steve White, good evening, everyone. Carnival Hands, what's going on, man? Good to see you. Good thing this playoff game is dog. Yeah, something else to entertain me. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I know a lot of people are watching football right now. My team, the San Francisco 49ers, we took care of business earlier today. Brock Purdy, the greatest quarterback in San Francisco 49er history, hands down. Let's see who else here. Comic Toby, what's going on, man? Hi, Spider-Man. You are Spider-Man. Let's see. Steve here. Hello, what's going on, Swags? Good to see you guys. 80s Comic Geek, what's going on, man? Thank you all for joining the chat here tonight. Well, I think I've rambled enough. I've hung in there for 4 minutes and 15 seconds. So I feel like I've gotten enough of a warm up, and now I can justifiably bring on my guests. Well, these guys don't need any introduction. They've been on the channel many times before, but I will still give them an introduction. Two great comic book minds in the YouTube space, two great comic book YouTube channels. Their links are in the description if you guys don't happen to know these guys. But please welcome to the channel, Ryan from Automatic Comic Books and Drew from Como Comic Books. Gentlemen, it's good to see you again. It's 2020.
Great to be back on here.
I tell you, we leave you alone for 4 minutes and you throw Joe Montana under the bus. I don't even know what happened in here.
This guy, Brock Purdy, I'm telling you, he's the real deal. It's very, very exciting to have a real quarterback, unlike Jimmy Garoppolo, if you guys happen to know your football.
Yeah. I mean, I've been a Chiefs fan for a while, so I know the difference.
Yeah. We'll see you in the rematch. We'll see you in the rematch, I think, this year. We'll see.
I'll take it.
But yeah, guys, thanks for hopping on the channel. I mean, I feel like, we talk all the time on like socials and Instagram, but this is like the first time on camera.
Probably with just the three of us, I think. Yeah, that's probably true.
At least since I think when we did our PCA Halloween stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So something live though, since those were recorded.
Yeah. So, Ryan, let me start with you. What's going on? How's the new year treating you? I know you just put out a video today talking about some of the heritage sales. So, if you guys are in the chat, definitely go check that out after the stream. But, how's your new year been?
Yeah, New Year's been good so far. I've already been buying too many books again. I've been saying I've been trying to really dial it back. I've got like quarterly taxes due, all that kind of stuff. So need to dial back the purchases a little bit. But I have some more videos coming out with some cool stuff. I picked up another collection pretty recently, so I'll be putting that one out as well. And then my niece got me this Gengar for Christmas, so it hangs out behind me now on the shelf.
Nice. Yeah, and I'm excited to hear your thoughts on one of the books, the suspense one, later on, because that was when I knew that you wanted to buy, and I think it sold for more than what you would have intended to pay for it. Right?
I was actually talking to someone on Instagram, and they said I was possibly the reason that one sold for as much as it did.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm like I haven't. We talked about this. That's part of the reason why I did not put out a books I'm looking for video, because I just especially when you're talking Golden Age, it doesn't take many additional people, like one or two more people that want that book, and now you could be in trouble trying to buy
on
it.
its own. I mean, that just never comes up.
Yeah, totally. Well, Drew, what about you? I know you've been knee deep in a big collection, but how's your year started so far?
Well, I haven't actually announced on YouTube. I don't think that I bought that, but no, I mean, I was going to shoot a video today. It's probably going to roll into tomorrow, but basically I'm revealing that, so if you're here, you're just getting a little peek behind the scenes. I bought like a 17,000 book collection at the end of November, and just like holidays and personal stuff. The fall's always crazy for me, so it's taken me weeks to finally just get through all the boxes to where I have half of an idea of what I actually bought. So that's been really fun, but I'm going to start diving into that, and it's pretty much taken up all my time. And then we've got con season staring us down. In 9 weeks, I'll be in Kansas City selling at Planet Comic Con there. So it's already, the year's young, but there's still lots to do.
For comparison, the collection I bought was like 138 books. I felt overwhelmed with that.
I bought one of those. I bought one of those a couple of weeks ago too. Yeah. So actually, I bought a couple of those. I probably already bought 4,000 books this year.
Oh my God. I get overwhelmed buying 20 books at a con. It's like, to me, it's like, this is.
Let me tell you the secret, guys. You buy it, you transport it, you stack it somewhere, and you walk away until you have time to deal with it.
There you go. Well, I can't wait for you to sell it all this year. And then at the end of the year, go ham in whatever the next heritage auction thing will be.
But I don't think anybody will be surprised to know what I'm going after. But me too. Me too.
Well, we'll talk about one of those books, I think, later on. But let's kind of dig into it. And of course, the Platinum Heritage Auction is one of those signature auctions where they got the big boys, the big boy books. And I feel like I just wanted to start with this one right here. I think this is like, I don't know if it's funny or if it's like sad or like how you want to classify it. But I want to talk about the ultimate fallout for the Djurjevic variant. Here's the blue label, sold for 43,200, a huge number by itself. So we can talk about that. But then you have back-to-back lots, which was this one, same book, 9.8 white pages, but signed by Bendis, that went for $10,000 less.
And it sold first.
Yeah, and it sold first, which is usually the flip of how that goes. Like usually the big ones first.
Right. So that's super interesting. So, I guess, Ryan, what do you think about this? You made a little Instagram post. And
I made an Instagram post about more comments than almost any post I've had in a while. And people were interested in that one. And it's one of those things, like everybody has a thought on why. And a lot of times I feel like it's people are trying to defend a book, like they want it to be something. And I mean, honestly, like I personally feel like this, like that 43,000 price, I don't buy it. I mean, I think that price is elevated. I don't think, like, I mean, look at that thing. This book was, and for anybody that disagrees, that's fine. Everybody gets their own opinion on this stuff. But I mean, we saw this with so many books. You had AF-15 and Hulk 1 and X-Men 1, and everything goes up, comes back down, and everybody's like, no, this one will be different.
Yeah.
And this one, like, this was a $2,000 book like 3 years ago.
Right.
I mean, 2020.
Like you go back to 2020 here. Yeah. 2,600 sold price.
Yeah. I mean, and so being up almost like 20x, like, come on, you know, like that's a little crazy. Like I could see it pulling, like, I don't think it's going all the way back there, but like into the low 20s, I could easily see this thing coming back to, because look at how many copies there are out there. There's like 150 or something, or 166 9/8. So for 9/8, I'm talking
66 9/8, yeah.
And a majority of those were sold prior to these big copies, meaning most people are into this book about $2,000 or less. And so if you see that book is selling for 40,000-50,000 or something like that, you're going to be like, yes, I will list that book for sale.
Totally. What do you think, Drew?
Well, one of my point there that I was going to hop in with is just, when was the last time there was a big auction like this that didn't have a copy of it?
I think most Comic Connect, and I don't know about Comic Link, but I feel like Comic Connect has had them on most of theirs.
I feel like these pop up at the same regularity as AF-15s, definitely 181s, maybe not quite as much, but I mean, I can't remember a recent auction where there wasn't an example of this book that's up for sale. And I think that's just, to your guys' point, everybody has these. Everybody that wants one of these has these. But the comment that really stuck with me, Ryan, I don't know if it was your Instagram post or commentary I was reading other places. I guess there's a lot of hate in the world for Brian Michael Bendis's signature. Apparently, like people were talking about the color. I don't know. I've seen some signatures, but I mean, hell, he signed it in black pen. You can hardly even tell it's there.
You barely even know it's there. Like,
yeah.
I mean, like that. Well, that's a good question. So because I want to go back to this book being inflated, but let's talk about the signature price difference. Like, do you think that this is a situation where it's because it's like a Bendis signature? Like, do you think if Djurjevic's signature was on something like this, or let's say there was like an AF-15 with a Stan Lee sig, do you think that like a Stan Lee sig would always sell for more?
They always. I mean, I don't know if I've ever come across a case where it's like a back-to-back where it doesn't.
Right.
You know, like,
do you think that this is just a Bendis situation, or do you think it's also maybe exclusive? Like, would it be anyone outside of Stan Lee or like Todd McFarlane? Maybe
the tough part is to say, like, it's $10,000. You know, it's like that is a third of the value of the book. If that is how like iffy the value is on that book, that a signature series is going to drop the price $10,000, that does not give me confidence in that book. I mean, like, keep the signature all you want, but that's $10,000.
Yeah, right.
I think the high level here is that whoever bought this signature series made the better purchase of the two.
I would agree,
in my opinion, because that Blue Label just got dumb. And it's not like Bendis's signature is out there like a lot of people. I don't see him at a lot of cons, especially since he's had health problems in the last few years. So it's not it's not like he was Stan Lee, who spent the last 15 years of his life just signing anything that somebody sat in front of him, which sadly was his reality. So I don't understand what happened. It's really just crazy, but I have to agree. And
it's not that I am not hating on modern books or variants or anything. Like, I think that ASM 667 is awesome. That sold earlier in this auction. It was actually kind of like a little lower. It was like 37 or something in this one.
I'll bring that one up later. Yeah.
But you know, I like that stuff. I think it's cool, but I like to try to give my honest opinion to people when I'm like warning about, like, something has a warning sign. And yeah, maybe this book goes up. You know, maybe it does continue to go up. That's fine. But to me, the downside risk is way higher than the upside potential on this one. And that's the concerning part with this book for me.
I totally agree with you on that. And then just to reiterate for Mark here, what he was asking about with the print run, you know, it's 740 universal copies and 166 9.8s. And to put it into perspective, you know, this is a book that just sold for 43,000. And, you know, in the same auction, for that number at a 9.8, you can get a Punisher for lost control. You can get a Punisher for 31,000. This is now where this book has sort of corrected to. And census wise for this, it's going to be comparable at the 9.8, around like 160 or whatever it is, you know, and probably comparable, like maybe not universal, but like, let's just say all the Miles books versus all the Punisher books. And then similarly, like you get a giant size X-Men 1 selling for this. And the reason I bring up these, and also we'll talk about this 181, is it's like, this is like, these are the types of books that are 9.8 census comparable. And you just got to wonder, like, I mean, I guess you can maybe argue now that Miles is as popular as Punisher would be in theory, as far as like holders, but I don't know, the rate to which the book has grown, that's the scary part, right? Like that's
for me, that's what it really is. It's the acceleration in price. You know,
and
is it sustainable?
It seems very concerning. And, you know, I don't think it's a coincidence that in the time in which this book has blown up, we're in this sort of both comic book boom period and also Sony Into the Spider-Verse franchise, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't know.
And that is an impressive number of tabs that you have open.
Yeah, I noticed that before.
We got a lot to talk about that. We got a lot to talk about.
Like, how do you even know what each one of those is?
I don't.
Click it and find out.
I'm shooting from the hip here.
It's a blind bag.
But what do you? I mean, I guess that's the thing. I mean, and again, with books like this, they're you know, even these 9.8s have pulled back pretty hard, but I think
I think that one got up to 55 or 57 or something.
But we're now seeing like a couple more consistent for like this type of number around, and it feels
like Giant Size X-Men 1 really, it does seem like it's kind of like around the 30 mark now. Like that's where you're getting quite a few sales in that range.
And a 50-year-old 9.8, I feel a lot better around, you know, for this price point. It just, I couldn't bring myself to spend $2,000 on that variant, you know, 3 years ago, let alone 30, 40,000 now. It's just, I need more history before I'm going to come out of pocket for that level of a book. And I guess, you know, there are just players out there who are comfortable with rolling the dice, but.
Well, yeah, I mean, if money's no object, like, who cares? You know, like, it doesn't matter if you can afford to lose that. But if you're going to be really, really upset if that book goes from 40,000 down to like 15 or 20 or something, probably would not recommend picking that up.
You have sorry, Mick, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, it feels like, you know, maybe just sort of back to what you're getting at, Ryan, where, you know, so many people who have the book are in it for, at max, they're in it for whatever, like $3-4 grand, right? So like, how can you not be incentivized to sell when you see the price hitting 40 back to back to back? And then we, you know, I saw one on the Grail's consignment page. I think that sold for like 38, like the day after or yesterday or something. So,
it did sell.
I think it did. Yeah. And so
it was a DM sell, but like, so you don't really know for sure what it sold for.
Right. That's true.
But yeah.
But you know, I mean, if they keep coming to market, it's the question is like, you know, will it continue to sustain? And it's kind of sketchy when you look at that chart.
That's my thing with Ultimate Fallout 4, like in particular. We haven't had that major moment, you know. I mean, yeah, we've had the animated movies, they've done well. There's video games. We haven't had that Hall H reveal of Miles, you know, the event that's kind of got everybody to where it's like, okay, now it's time to release the Kraken. We're unloading all of our Ultimate Fallout 4s into the market. I just feel like, I mean, obviously it's not going to go to zero, but there's going to be a tidal wave of UF4s, whether it's the first print, either the second prints, this thing. I just feel like everybody is waiting in the wings, except for those people who might get a little, you know, motivated when they see these stupid numbers for that variant. But I mean, even last year I was seeing posts where people were finding 60, 70, 80 copies of the second printings. So these books are still out there, and it's just,
I mean, I've seen sales on Instagram where that variant was raw, you know. I mean, it's not like they're all graded. They definitely are not all great.
Was it a 1 in 15, a 1 in 25?
1 in 15, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, pretty crazy overall. Well, for only $20,000 more, you could buy a Incredible Hulk 9.8 off-white to white pages, $70,000. Nice. I feel like this is the next kind of interesting book to talk about in this sale, or at least the decline of the 181 and kind of where it's selling for today. Now, it felt like for a time, and we were all talking about this, in our Instagram chat about this one and how kind of like this sale, depending on how you want to like kind of view it, either this number is like, oh my God, I can't believe like this book is crashing, this thing is completely destroyed the price, or it's like, all right, now finally it's like back to what it sort of should be selling at. What's your guys' thoughts on this one? I mean, can we chalk it up to this one is just off-white to white pages?
Yeah, so that's where like whenever I talk about a book like that, I know I can predict comments. It's like, oh, it was off-white to white pages. That's why it's like the record for Giant Size X-Men 1 is still an off-white to white page book. The one that sold the highest was off-white to white. So it's like, I mean, I know like white pages can be a thing, but I mean, I honestly, I think the price of that book will probably level out somewhere between 60 and 70. I'm surprised this one came down as quickly as it did. It was a little, I mean, because it's been selling at like 90, 100. And so, yeah, I mean, the off-white to white may have had something to do with it. I also know that this one, like some people were saying it had a spine tick, and it's like, you can have spine ticks in 9.8, you can have spine ticks in 9.8. But I also, I mean, I think part of it is just, we hadn't seen hardly any 9.8s. It was like a year, maybe a little more than a year. I don't know if one sold all of 2021, or maybe it was like just one, or at least since the comic boom started in 2021. So they were being held back because I'm sure people were nervous about putting it out there. Like, where's this going? And now that we started having some of those sales, we have had more and more and more 9.8s out there, because there are a pretty large number of them. I think it's around 150 or 180 or
137. It looks like that.
Okay, 137. Yeah, and so again, it's one of those things where, okay, so maybe 10 or so have sold in the last 6 months, 8 months. Yeah. So that means that there are 127 that are still out there that people had for much lower prices. And that's what causes a lot of this, is like, you get people that are just like, they could make 50 grand instantly. Yeah. And that's really appealing.
Like that. I mean, like you're saying, March of 2020, let's say you're the person who bought this book for $36,000. I mean, like, how could you not be incentivized to sell when you see it go for 138?
Even at this, you're still double, Yeah. Well, except for Heritage, where they're taking a bunch of your money and fees.
Yeah. It's not
never mind that.
Yeah, it's not a clean double, but you're still, for a relatively short amount of time, you're making a really good profit.
Yeah, it's like, do a comparison with maybe if you're someone, because if you have that book, you probably have a decent amount of money, and so like maybe you're looking at like your other investments, how they're doing, and they're all down like 20-30%. And you're like, this one, I'm up 100%. It's like, I'll take that win.
Yeah. What do you think, Drew, about this one?
This one, I don't know. It makes me scratch my head. X-Men in general just went for such a ride in 2020, 2021. It feels right. Like when it broke 100,000 for the first time, it didn't seem like it was sustainable. So to be back down here, but still, quite a bit higher than it was, I'm a lot more comfortable with that. And the thing is, God only knows how many more of these are out there. I know they don't come around every day, but
I mean, there are people that have them stacked.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's one of those books that, it's a big book, but I also know people who were walking around show floors with them looking to trade them for AF-15s within the last couple of years. So it's like, and these aren't, necessarily like super high end rollers. I feel like the 137 or however many they are fairly well dispersed. That, it's not just all the super high end dealers that have them, or the guys who are high end stackers or whatever. There are regular people that have these, and they're just waiting for that moment. And of course, I mean, obviously the 9.9 is still out there, and that's going to make all these 9/8 feel puny when it ever comes back.
Yeah. The
I want to see that book sell in a live sale. I feel, because I think the last time it sold was still private. I don't think it was like a public sale or public auction, because I'd love to know what that one ultimately goes for.
No sales data.
When it goes up, we all need to hop on a stream and sit here with popcorn and beer and just have a hell of a time. Well, that's good content right there.
Oh, totally. I mean, the good thing I think about, let's say you're somebody who is, a holder of this book or whatever. I think this is a good sale, like kind of a rip the Band-Aid off sale, where it's like, because now all of a sudden, it's at 70. And if you're someone who bought in on this book, say back here for $42,000, and you're seeing now it sells for 70, it's like, okay, 30 grand margin. I got to pay Heritage some fees, blah, blah. Like, I'll just, for 20K profit, I'll just hold on to it. But
honestly, that's what surprised me about people continuing to dump their AF-15s.
Well,
like those books are almost completely back at like 2020, 2019 prices, or at least the upper end of 2020, 2019 prices. And you still, like, I still see them every week on Heritage. I'm like, why are people still selling that book? Like, I would have thought, like, I mean, they're definitely slowing down some. I'm usually not seeing like 3 copies a week, but I still see almost 1.
Yeah. Well, I mean, those could just be the people who bought in at 2011 maybe or something.
Yeah.
I'm kind of regretting I should have flipped mine and just sat on the funds and waited for these Universal companies to come back down within range, because there was a point in time where my 2.5 restored signature series was FMV in around 20-25, give or take.
Yeah.
And it's like, that would be a pretty decent blue label at this point. But
definitely. Yeah. And it is interesting, even at the low grade side, where you can see that, like, there's still a lot of people that want to just be in that club, so it's the buy-in, like, even if the 2.0s or whatever are, like, correcting back down, like that 1.0 floor price is still holding pretty strong for like whatever it was, like
that's the same thing. That's the same thing with AF-15s, or is that what you were talking about, Drew?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
AF-15s,
I mean, a lot of these books, the low ends are holding up really well. It's like there's still that demand where people want it. It's
they just
that
want
you're getting a lot more compression on prices.
Totally. Well, speaking of not prices compressing, let's talk about this one right here, because this one that's a banger of a number right here. Crime Suspense 2290. I think this is the highest grade that's sold, like, in recent years.
Because is there a 9.8 of this one? Because I know there's a lot of 9.8s of ECs.
I looked it up pre-show, and there is. So
the thing I noticed is it's not a Gaines file copy, so that tells me there should be some pretty nice ones out there, because it's obviously a later run book.
There's 198.
So you see 1111.
Yeah.
So 4 higher graded copies than the 9.0 here.
That's surprisingly low.
Yeah, but like they're basically the 8.5. We'll talk about that, in terms of like the numbers. But is this one of those things where it's like, I mean, you were kind of making like a little bit of a joke, Ryan, of like, oh man, like,
was I joking though? I don't know.
I should sell mine. Like, does that make you like nervous? Like, is this all of a sudden like, hey, let's sell all our copies? Like,
I mean, that's the difference though. There are only like 350 total graded copies, and so that's where it's like the undercutting is a lot harder on Golden Age books. This is one of the most, like, in terms of like EC books and like most Golden Age books, it has a lot, and over 300 is a lot for a Golden Age book. And yeah, I mean, I feel like there are certain Golden Age horror books that are getting a little they're getting overheated. This is definitely one of them. And I'm saying that owning a copy, so I'm not helping myself. But like, there are a couple, like Chamber of Chills 19. Like, I feel like that book has gotten a little overheated, and there's quite a few copies out there. This one has, and I'm sure I could come up with a few others like of these like big ones, but I'd say it doesn't really make me nervous. I feel like there is significant demand for those books. Like, I mean, even now you look on eBay and there's like 0 good copies. I think there's 2.5s. There's like a restored 4.0 or something. and there might be one other that's like lower grade. I mean, even though the prices have come up, like people aren't selling them, and it's because it's like my thought. It's the same thing with me. It's you can get another copy, but it's not an easy get, you know, and you're probably going to pay up for it when you do.
Right.
And so, you know, like I am like with the prices I've seen, I am slightly tempted. You know, it is one where I am slightly tempted, but I have not listed it yet. So I haven't gotten over that hump yet of actually listing it.
Flash forward to next week where Ryan IMs us or DMs us and is like, yeah, so I posted the crime suspense story.
Well, it's not going to be cheap. I'm going to be like aiming for like a huge record because it's not like I want to sell it. You know, it's like it's going to be if you want this, you need to want it more than me type of price. But still, like, yeah, I mean, that's a huge jump from the 8.5. I mean, this is where you're getting like big gaps in.
What was the previous sale in grade?
Well, it was like 23 or something.
It was like 2,300, but it was like say 2004.
Was it? I thought it was like 23. I thought there was like a 23,000 a few years ago. Maybe there wasn't.
Here's 2003 was 2,300. At least this is what go collect, guys, go collect. But
all right.
But the 8.5, this one I think is interesting to talk about the 8.5 because we can kind of do a little bit of like back in 2019, the 8.5 was like 15,000. You know, in March of 2019, then later in the year in December, pulled back a little bit, 13,000. And then in 2020, in January, before the boom, it's at 32. And then in last November, it goes up to 52. So it's kind of on this like 2x.
It is a book that if you look at its long history, it does just trend up. Now it has accelerated like everything else though. And so that's the slightly concerning part, but I was just looking at GPA and there was a $23,583 sale for a 9.0 in February of 2020. So 3 years ago. So, I mean, like triple in 3 years that's a lot.
Yeah, it is a lot. I mean, you know, so there's 3 9.0s. Like if you're somebody who bought that 9.0, you know, and then all of a sudden you see this sale, and you're like,
it would probably hit a similar number. I wouldn't be shocked if it, you know, usually when I see sales like that, if I'm like estimating prices, I'd probably estimate the next sales at like 65. And if it beats that, then that's a real big confirmation of that.
Yeah.
You know,
that's a good point. Yeah. That's a good point. It's probably I mean, like there's going to be at least 4 people that are willing to pay that number. Right. So like the price, you know, the fact that there's 3 copies is fine. Well,
but it's an awesome book, though. I mean,
like,
that's why I mean,
I want it so bad.
I'm torn on it, you know, because like I want to always have a copy. Like I don't ever really want to get rid of one unless I have another one. But like as the prices go up, it's like it's tough. Like you would almost have to sell the other one first, but then the likelihood of one coming up is so low. So
that's an interesting thing too, because you know. To that idea, like that's where it's like, yeah, maybe you can find like an okay looking 2.0 and you can just have it. And if you have that much equity on your like 9.0, I mean, it's kind of hard not to take that gain. I mean, unless it's your book. If that's your grail, then you know, obviously hold it.
Man, this book.
Well, speaking of grails, I just saw this number and I was like, man, you know. Tripling in the other direction, but
because I think it peaked around 15.
I think so, but like it's just one of those things where I guess the question I kind of want to pick your guys' brains on with this one. It's like, you know, we're seeing prices pull back, right? We're seeing the corrections, and I've done, you know, that I've done the index type of stuff, and I know Ryan, you have like an interesting way that you kind of do like expected value versus like what's trending above and below. And it's funny that like, I feel like we get similar, like it's 2 ways to measure it, but we get similar like thoughts of what's happening. Except
like yours was showing an uptick in December, and like I was like, man, sales have been pretty strong.
Yeah. But I haven't measured the golden age, but we can talk about the bronze age stuff. And this one I just think is interesting because it's like, okay, so this one is coming back down into like, or say this last sale, $5,000. You know, it needed to drop to that level, right? Because even here in June, July, September, the market was still a little inflated. So it needed to get priced in a like, okay, what is the December 2022 and January 23 price? And it's down to 5,000, but it's still above, say, a 2020 sold price. Mm-hmm. But being a, special Marvel edition book, like I would lump other books like Eternals or like Werewolf by Night 32 or like other books like that maybe they got pre-inflated. I guess my question to you guys is like, do you think like the books that are like pre-inflated still run the risk? Or do you think that we're just in like a new territory now and like these books are just keys and like people probably still won't go back to those things because people just know them to be keys now? Does that make sense? Does my question make sense?
Mm-hmm. I think what a lot of it comes down to is just fan base, because these books didn't just all of a sudden appear. They're 40 years old, 50 years old, and nobody gave a crap. You could buy really nice raw copies of this book 5 years ago for $100. It just nobody cared when it wasn't worth much, and it kind of is turning out that nobody really cares now that more than 3 people know who Shang-Chi is because they had a movie. It's just how passionate is your fan base. Are you able to sustain that fan base as things go on? I mean, are you able to bridge the gap between, hey, I have my own movie, and then is the feels you leave those people with sufficient that they're going to not only go back and read your comic stories that led to this movie, but they're going to want to drop serious money into comics that they haven't already.
Yeah.
Which I don't think a lot of these people, Eternals specifically, like you mentioned, I don't know that they've got the umph to sustain the pricing, especially when everybody was making money on everything. We're just throwing stuff out there just on a chance we might catch the next big one, and we're in a different world now. So I still think 5,100 doesn't seem terrible. I mean, I gotta think the population is probably fairly low on that with the black, as far as 9/8 go. 118. That's kind of in line with what I'd expect, but it's just, I think it boils down to demand. How many people are going to want to drop even $5,000, never mind $15,000 on that book when there's so many other examples of, books that are more desirable in that same price range.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's always the thing. It's like, you've got competition in the price range. But it's like, I think one of the things that has hurt this book is that, I mean, we had Shang-Chi appear in, his movie, and then we haven't really seen him since. It's like you'd have thought maybe you'd get him somewhere, and maybe he appeared in some movie and I didn't see it because I haven't really watched all the movies. So
you have not missed it, my friend.
Yeah.
And so like, but I feel like they're kind of hurting his value right now. And it's one of those things where it's possible that if they start focusing on him more in the future, that you get a little more of a, interest in the character. But I mean, the fact that we haven't seen him for, I mean, what is it? What was it like? It's not 2 years ago, but it's got to be over a year, right?
Yeah. It was, I guess 2021, but like that's all a year and a half now.
Year and a half, like without having his face on anything. Like, I mean, that's not helping this book at all.
Which is really sad because it's a very easy lift. He does kung fu. You don't have to spend special effects to put him in his costume that already exists and have him walk across the screen.
Totally.
Yeah, it's not like Moon Knight. It costs like $1 million every time you want to see him.
Somebody brought up, I saw like somebody, I don't remember what it was, but they were like, it seemed like a layup to just put him in the scene in Doctor Strange when like Wanda's attacking the Sanctorum. Like, just do one scene with him there. He just does some ninja kicks against Wanda, and then
he throws rings or whatever, like something like.
I don't know why, but just for some reason you mentioned Moon Knight, Ryan, and just there's a clip of Ryan Reynolds making fun of the digital costume to Green Lantern for somewhere, and the instant I heard Moon Knight, that's what played in my head. It's like, DC's already made this mistake. Why does the MCU feel they needed to repeat it?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting with this one. I'm very curious to see, we're obviously going to be, comics will obviously still be a thing 4 years from now when we're in Secret Wars and all that stuff. And it'll just be interesting to see like what a book like this does over that length of time. You know, that'll be like such an interesting kind of story, I think, that we'll come to find out what happens.
Well, and for me, honestly, like it's kind of interesting seeing these books come back down, because it's made things not as easy to predict with the comic boom happening, because you have characters then appear in things which used to cause books to spike, but now it doesn't really, because they're already elevated. Now, so you end up selling a few more copies, but you don't really have any moves in the price. And so it's honestly, it's good. It's good for this stuff to get back down into something that's a little more predictable. And yeah, this price doesn't seem out of line to me. It's like a pretty early Bronze Age, 1973, 9.8.
This is like right in line to what a first Iron Fist would sell around here, or like maybe at an Elektra, 9.8. Like that seems comparable, right?
Yeah, I think Sabretooth is probably a similar price for 9.8.
Looks like it peaked in 2011 at $18,000 in September.
This book did?
Yeah.
2021. So, 18. I mean, yeah, that's pretty rough. You know what I mean? But it's going to be hard for a book like this to get back up to 18K. I don't know what. Like when you think about like, okay, Bronze Age characters like Ghost Rider and Blade and Moon Knight, like 18K is like where would a Tomb of Dracula 9.8 today sell for 18K? I mean,
I think it's around 30 at this point.
Okay.
But
so, I mean, it'll be hard to get back up there, but I know people like to throw out like, or people like to dismiss like, oh, why should you care if a character shows up in a movie? And it's like, it has to do with like creating demand, right? Like if people just, at a certain point, people have to be converted into fans and want to own the comic book. And the movies are just the natural way to do that. So
yeah,
it'll be interesting. I don't know. All right. This one, it feels like there's okay. There's a lot you can do with $6,600. There's a lot of cool books you can buy with $6,600.
And I'll say I'm a fan of price variance. I do like price variance, but like,
I mean, if you guys don't know, this is the 30-cent price variant right there, which is how rare are these relative to what they should be, like 35
I think they were shipped in 8 markets.
The Eternals one is more rare in the 30-cent. It definitely much more rare, but because like the closer you get to when the price switches over, the less rare it becomes. And they switched to 35 at issue 3. Or sorry, 30 at issue 3, like across the board. So, but yeah, I don't know the difference in numbers. Let's see, who would GPA would at least have, or not GPA, CGC's census, or you could probably get it off of Go Collect. But sometimes Go Collect combines them, so I'm not sure.
Yeah. I didn't do the legwork, but I mean, regardless, this is just one of those things where like, I mean, I guess there are those, those people that really like, these types of books, like they like the variants or the price variants or the Whitmans or, whatever you want to do with them. But it just, I mean,
what's a 9.8 selling for now normal? Is it like 450 maybe?
It's like, yeah, it's so low. It can't be more than a couple $100, I think.
Because I mean, so for price variance, it all depends on the book. Some of them have much bigger multiples than other, like Iron Fist. I think the multiple is like, it's a lot. It's like 35. It's maybe 15 or like 35 or something like that. It's over the
I have 14.
Yeah. The first Sabretooth.
So 354 was the last sale for this.
Yeah, so I mean that's almost at 20x. That seems like a lot. For this
right.
one.
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, I suppose maybe it is 20 times less common, if not a lot more, but Jesus, man.
Here's some perspective for you though. The last sale of a 9.8 30-cent variant was May of 2022 for $17,000.
Oof.
Oh my God.
So
okay. This person got a steal.
Yeah.
Flip that.
We're over here like, why did you spend that much?
Yeah,
and they're paying like a fraction of
they're like, I got a deal. You're killing me.
You're in, and we're like, what are you doing? Now, to me, this just reeks of somebody who is like trying to put together a 9/8 set, probably for the CGC competition of price variance, and they're just going to pay whatever it takes to get one of these.
Yeah, that's a good point. Well, Ryan, what was the Star Wars one? What does that book sell for? $30,000.
Well, the 9.4 sold for 54, I think.
Oh my god, yeah.
Yeah, that's your hands down Bronze Age winner.
And I know I like because I'll spoil it for a later video, but I picked up a 7.0 of that recently, and I most people seem to be like, why? But I love it. I love that book, you know. And so, but I mean, Star Wars, like, to me, it's like Star Wars. It's like it's a major franchise I like, that kind of thing. But Eternals, you know,
I
get it.
No, I'd love to have one of the ASM price variants just to say I had one in my collection, but I'm not going to chase a 9.8, and especially not going to pay, you know, a 200% or a 2,000% premium or whatever it is for it.
Well, this is one of those books I just think, like, you know, I mean, I just look at this graph, and like back in 2017, it's like a $200 book or 400 here, and shoots up to 1,000 in 2019 with announcements and things like that, and then it drops off. And I'm like, at this point, for 354, I mean, how much lower can it go? I mean, I guess it could go to zero.
Below where it was post announcement, you know, like it. Yeah, and it sounds like they're bringing the Eternals back, and they're going to kind of like rework them. So it's probably not a terrible purchase. Like, I'm not talking about that 9.8 one, but like a 9.8 standard is probably not a terrible purchase at this point at these prices.
Yeah, and even like, you know, it's still, there's some people that still think it's cool. It's like a Kirby book, you know, so people still like it for that reason, even outside of movie. I mean, yeah, interesting one.
I just feel like every time I talk about Eternals on the channel, I have somebody comment, they're like, we hated that book
in the
70s. We hate it now.
And I get that too so much. People just do not like it. It's really funny.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of just, it's the leftovers, you know, all the good stuff went into Fourth World over at DC, and he's like, well, I ain't put this out yet, so what the hell? Let's slap it under a marble.
You're forgetting about OMAC.
OMAC is so weird. You have to like it.
That cover is
crazy.
By that.
Oh my god. Well, I made a video a few days ago where I was being, I mean, look, guys, if you guys don't know by now, like 99.9% of the time I'm being facetious with like every single thing I say. But like, I made a video where I was talking about FOMO was dead. And then lo and behold, this 9.4 sells for $14,000. Now, to put it,
somebody heard you talking, and they're like, "I'll show swag."
She was like, "Let me show
you." 14 grand for this.
FOMO isn't dead, but like, just to put it in perspective, like, look, I'm one of the few people that actually like Kang. Like, I think he's cool, but that's way too much money for that book. Like, that's gonna have a correction. You know, that's a record price. Like a record price in grade when. In November,
it's like not close. Like,
like for 9,600. So I mean, someone got FOMO, but like, I don't know. What do you think about that one?
I mean, I've been saying this for a while that I think Kang is like, it's an okay book to buy for like the next like 3 years, but I don't foresee it holding anything like the prices it's been at long term. Now, I mean. The comparison that is often made is to Iron Man 55, you know, first Thanos, but like, I don't know, maybe it's people from our generation or whatever, but like, I love Thanos. You know, I feel like a lot of people like Thanos and want to own that first appearance. It was on my keeper list for a long time, like 2 years. And so, but with Kang, I feel like that's not the case. There aren't like a bunch of people who are like, oh man, I love Kang. He's like my, you know, I know you said you like it, but I feel like the number of people that love Kang is much lower than Thanos. And so it's like, is this type of price sustainable? And I feel like once they're done with him in the MCU, we're going to see it just kind of come back. I mean, it's going to be at a higher level because he will be more relevant. People will be aware of him, especially if I'm blanking on the actor's name.
Jonathan Majors.
Jonathan Majors. Like he looks like he's going to kill it in the role, that kind of stuff. But But I don't see it going back all the way back to where it was, but I see it making a pretty big correction.
Yeah. I mean, like I totally get it. Look, guys, like Darkhawk is my favorite character. I'm not saying that I have great taste in characters here, but yeah, I like Kang. But what do you think, Drew? I mean, that sale seems wild to me. That seems like, I guess FOMO is alive and well, but that one is going to correct. Like not to say that it'll crash, but it's not. It's too high.
I mean, okay, it's 39 fours. That's what I was wondering. All right.
Yeah.
I'm more wondering if it's not going to follow the trajectory of like a Tales of Suspense 50. That's actually I'm looking at over here on the side.
That's Mandarin, right?
Yeah, first Mandarin, where it kind of has its moment in the sun and it just goes away. I think you just got to look at the lessons that the history of the hobby teaches us, and in that, the books that have always been desirable will continue to be desired. Just almost blanket statement. I know you can poke holes in it, like everybody loved Barks ducks back in the day, and they don't sell for what they do or haven't blown up or whatever. But especially when you're talking about superheroes and stuff, especially no better than really the movies tend to treat villains. I think they just have, their moment in the spotlight. They catch a little bump and then they get killed off or shoved on the back burner, and we just move on to the new hotness that we've dug out of the gutter here. So yeah. I wouldn't expect profiting on the resale of this book if they have any intentions of doing that in the next 10 years. Maybe after that amount of time, it'll just naturally catch up to what they paid. But I think it's a cool book. It's a really nice looking copy of it. Anytime you see a book from 64, 65, that is still that white, I can appreciate it. But I don't think that was a wise financial decision.
Yeah. I mean, I do think, by the time we get to the end of Secret Wars and all that stuff, like for sure it'll have its pullback and its correction. Maybe I'm delusional, but I'm more of the opinion, like I think if you can find it around a 2020 price, you'll be fine. Like it'll probably go all the way up, when things are lit and hype in Secret Wars, and then after that, no one will care again. But I assume that it'll settle back to like wherever this 2020 price is.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where you always got to look at perspective for where these books were. Like I used to have 2 7.5s of that book. I bought them both for about $700, I think, back in 2020.
Right.
Either 2020 or 2019. And so, I don't know what a 7.5 is going for now, but I think it's probably like 2,500, 3,000, something like that.
Yeah, that's way too much, in my opinion, when I look at that. 1,800 is last sold.
Okay, so 18. Well, yeah, but right before that, it was at 2,350.
Yeah,
2,500. So that 1,800 is. I mean, it seems like based on that 14.4, like maybe it's going to go, because we just had the trailer too, so maybe it'll get a little bit again. But regardless, like just again, it's all like I think that's why it's always important to really look at where books are relative to that big spike that we had over the last year and a half. So, I think some will go all the way back to where they were prior. Some won't. I don't know but this one being up that much still makes me nervous.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. Another one that I think, like say Shang-Chi, I think when it's all said and done, I think a lot of it will depend on how successful in pop culture.
And I see Flexopotamus's comment there, and he's totally right. And that's one of the things that I know we've talked about in the chat, that it does matter how they write him in the story.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
If they don't give him good content, doesn't matter how good of an actor you are.
Totally. Totally.
But I'm just my only real view of him, other than a trailer, has been his part that was in Loki, which was amazing. Like he killed that. But I also thought Loki was really well done. So the question is, will Ant-Man also be really well done or not? And I don't know.
And that's why it's like, upside potential versus downside risk. You just have to assume from a downside risk perspective that, let's just say it all, fails miserably, right?
Yeah.
Like, then what are you left with? The people who have been collecting outside of movie stuff and what has been the like collecting patterns in history. Like do people like Kang, like that are the hardcore collectors? And typically speaking, people haven't. So I think it's really just going to depend.
And I don't normally respond to trolls, but I will respond because he's putting lies in my mouth. But the guy that they're saying, I always say markets go up. I am not the person that says that. If anybody actually watches my channel, they know I don't say that. And that I was, like AF15, I was telling people to not buy that book all the way back in late 2021, early 2022. So no, I don't constantly say that stuff goes up. I feel like I'm pretty honest on my channel.
I've never heard you say that outside of a blanket statement of like, in the 60 years of comics, yes, they've gone up based on inflation. But
he's just sad because he ran out of replicants to hunt.
That is true. Well, speaking of Ryan influencing the market, let's go on now to this next comic book right here. And I think this is a good one to talk about. Maybe Ryan, you should just, you did a video on this and I highly recommend you guys check it out. I think it's called like a scam. What was like the title or whatever?
Yeah, I think it was like I dodged a $30,000 bullet or something like that.
I highly encourage you guys to watch that. But
it sold right near that.
But as a recap, maybe you can kind of explain to people who don't know like what the story with this book was.
Yeah, so if you're not familiar with this one, Suspense Comics #3, it's basically like the #1 non-hero Golden Age book. It's done by Alex Schomburg. It's like this bondage, World War II era Nazi type cover, that kind of thing. And this book is very expensive in all grades. But what had happened was there was a heritage auction maybe like a month ago, and it was their last signature or platinum auction. And this exact same book was up on that auction for sale, and it was a blue label. And there was somebody who was very eagle-eyed on the CGC forums that had been going through like the Go Collect sales. And because Go Collect shows you pictures, he saw a CBCS 0.5 that had sold that had the exact same cover that was missing
this chip right here.
Yeah, it had this, and that's the thing with Golden Age. Like they're very identifiable marks that are on those books. It is hard to fake that kind of stuff. And so that one was missing like 4 interior wraps, or it was missing something. And so what happened was somebody had bought that 0.5 at some point, cracked it out, married it with a complete interior, or that's what we initially thought, and then sent it in to get regraded, and CGC gave it a blue label saying it was the correct interior, which it wasn't. Now, part of the reason why I thought maybe that had happened is if you look at where the staple is, there is no paper at the staple on the cover. And so normally how you would identify a married cover is that you would see like the staple hole stone align. But this one, you can't do that. Now, what some people are arguing too is that means CGC should have said, we're not going to grade this book because we can't actually determine. But regardless, they figured that out. They sent it back in, but it came back. Not only was the cover married, the centerfold was married. And so that's something that they should have been able to see, because that is very easy to identify a married centerfold in most cases. Now, maybe this one is unique, but usually like the page color is different. Again, staple holes, all that kind of stuff. So I had made that video because I was planning on bidding on this book when it was the blue label. I had put aside a bunch of money to bid on this book, and then they pulled it like 3 hours before it was supposed to sell. And so then it comes back on here and sells. Like I had figured at a blue label 1.0 was going to go around 30, like high 20s or maybe 30. And so like a green label with married cover and centerfold, I figured maybe 17, something like that. And so I had somebody message me on Instagram, and that they're like, this is what happens when you talk about a book, and it's like, it's the whole thing. It's like, it just takes a few more people to be aware of a book and be like, man, that's awesome. I want to own one of those. And this is a book that comes up for sale at most once a year. They never come up for sale. And so you get a bidding war, and this is what happens. You get a monster sale for this one. And I mean, it feels high to me. Now it's tough. It's always hard to say with like a super rare book like this, but that feels high to me.
Yeah. What do you think, Drew, about this one? It's interesting, like to piggyback off that last point, like with one like this is a lot of people's grails. So like, if you just want it, you just want it, right?
Exactly. I've seen parts of a copy of this book before. I've never seen a complete copy. And it's, you think it looks good on the screen. It's quite a sight to behold if you ever actually get one in your hands. And I think what this is, or what it potentially could be, is, it's a great book, but now it's a great story, because Ryan just spent the last 4 or 5 minutes laying out the history of this book. And now not only do we have the book, we have the story to go along with it. When you combine those two things together, things like green label selling for, the expected price of a blue label happen.
It's the scam copy. You call it the
exactly.
Scam copy,
That's all it takes. You get somebody with a little bit of a marketing brain, and they slap a label on it and start showing it around at conventions, and people take their pictures on it. And the next thing you know, it's $100,000 copy that looks like it went through a wood chipper.
Yeah.
But no, it's a great book. It's a crazy number.
It's all there, it's so that's rare enough to come by.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think, as much as we like to be uptight and like blue label is everything, we're getting to the point where if these things are going to exist, conservation, restoration, marrying them, it's just gonna become part of the conversation. And I think by the time the three of us and people in the chat start to shed this mortal coil, hopefully many years from now, that it's just, obviously the blue would still be preferred, but I don't think it's going to have the stigma the way that it does now. Just,
totally.
Oh yeah, I would have wanted to own this book. I mean, it's like, I might prefer a blue label, but I would be happy to have a green label
for sure, especially for the Golden Age stuff. Like, there's a bunch of Golden Age stuff that I would love to get, and I'm all about these labels that give me the opportunity to buy into it. You know what I mean? Like,
and the placeholder copy is real. You've got to buy what you can when you can, and just, I mean, Swag, you're probably one of the best examples out there for people of, just piling your resources to get what you can get. And next thing you know, you've got an Avengers 1 and 11.0.
Yeah. I will be that guy. Well, let's go into this book right here, which this is
my favorite book to post on Instagram, because I know it's going to get so many comments.
Well, help me out with this. Help me out with this one, because I don't get it. I don't, like, it's a cool cover. It's a cool book, but part of me just kind of feels like we just decided that this is the Grail book. And it could have been a lot of books, or
I think you're 100% right. I mean, it's expensive because it's expensive now.
Right. Yeah. And so now there's like this mystique around it. And now this is just the modern Grail. Like, what is your thoughts on it? Or what do people say? This is the ASM 667 Del Auto variant.
It's like the good variant is usually what people like to call it, that kind of thing. But granted, I mean, we've seen probably 3 sell this year, I think. Or, well, I mean, I know we're in 2023 now, but 3 sell within the last like 6 or 7 months, which I feel like is a lot for that one. I don't think it normally sells that often, and it's probably because prices have gone up with it. But I will say this book has just gradually increased. It's had a little bit of an accelerated peak recently, but it goes up pretty consistently. Like it's one of these that, I mean, look at that. Like, that's a pretty straight line.
Yeah. And it is only 23,
63 total pop.
63 total and 23.98. I mean, not as S tier as Spider-Man EMINEM, but still pretty amazing.
And not a hint of acetate to be found.
Onto its own right. But I don't know. I guess this one's an interesting one. I mean, I suppose if you were gonna, roll the dice on a Djurjevic or this one,
I'd take this one.
I think this one might be safer.
I'd feel more comfortable. I feel like the Djurjevic might have some type of like potential spike capability, but I feel like this one is the safer purchase. I mean, it sounds crazy, but I do think that this one is the safer purchase of those two.
Yeah, the Jurjevic, the thing they always had going was they're not standalone pieces, right? They're segments. They were 6 or 8 part connecting covers. What I remember about this book is when it came out, nobody had a damn clue what it was or how to get it. It just showed up one day. And I'm a bit of an ASM completionist, within what I can get my hands on here in the flyover. And when this book dropped, it was just a ghost. It just showed up.
Nobody was buying 100 copies of the A cover.
No, I mean, especially not. And, Greg made a comment here about Dan Slott. ASM was trending downhill at this point. Like, Slott could not land the plane. He had some good moments, but at this point, readership was dropping off. It was kind of just petering out. So yeah, the 100 or 1,000 copies or whatever it was to get one of these was, maybe a handful of stores in the entire country or the entire globe got a copy of this book. And I think it's just that holy crap factor. What's this? Just sent everybody scrambling out of the gate as soon as it came out. And I think that we haven't taken the time to tell those guys that it's okay to stop. You don't have to keep chasing this book.
Well, I guess that's kind of the irony of it too, right? Where it's like, it's a time when Spider-Man wasn't hot, and then that indirectly creates scarcity. Yeah. Because
and it's not just Spider-Man, it's like a lot of comics. I mean, that's right. Why this time period is when all those variants that are worth a ton of money exist. It's like
the
2010 to 2012.
Right? Yep.
Yeah.
The Mary Jane Venom one came out around the same time.
Well there's that
Lizard one, right? Came around.
Is X-Men 510? Is that the one? The Psylocke variant?
Psylocke?
There was one that was in this auction as well that sold for 18,000. I believe it had a image of Psylocke also drawn on the cover.
So that was a remark, right?
Yeah, it was a remark.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that one is another good example, and you're totally right. Like it feels like this era with Campbell and Delato and some of these artists and Bendis and stuff. Yeah, there's just a lot of these books that have kind of gained that notoriety and that mystique. And I mean, isn't this even the era and time frame of which had EMINEM and Punisher on it as well?
It is. Like, I think that was 2010.
Yeah, it was like a magazine giveaway or something, right?
Yep.
Right. So that's another book that kind of came up in this time. And, it's interesting. It begs the question of like, okay, are there any sort of modern grails? I mean, we really got to come up with like a different term, because I honestly do feel like the 2005 to like 2014 time is almost like its own era in a way.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I mean, at this point in time, the modern age of comics has existed for approximately half the entire existence of comics.
Exactly. It's crazy.
So I think we need to break that up. Jason made a comment. He talked about the ASM 700 Ditko variant, which I know, I don't think there's a copy of this
fallen pretty hard.
Which it got kind of crazy, but I mean, that's a great example of a book that could have been a lot more accessible, because when it was solicited, it was an open order. You didn't have to order X number or anything. And then like a week before FOC, Marvel completely pulled the rug out from underneath retailers and made it that huge ratio. I was pissed because I was going to get a couple copies because I love that cover. But it was just, it's a book that made me mad, and I'm still mad at it, and I still don't have one. So I'm fine with it crashing.
Well, we shall see with this one. I guess this one's going to crash later than UFO.
Yeah. And then, like, I mean, this is a lower sale than it has for the last couple. Also, it's tied with that $42,200 sale as the top modern sale. But, and I know I had somebody comment that what was it? The Ultimate Fallout Forger Jevic sold for 44 on like Whatnot or something like that. It's like, but I mean, we're talking about sales that are recorded publicly. And so it's like, it's not, most people don't know about that or aren't going to be able to reference that.
Brian's real sales.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, you never really know. I mean, like, it's like,
because who knows what somebody paid at a con? You know, maybe someone paid 60,000 at a con.
Yeah.
I have
maybe
no
someone
idea.
paid 5,000 at a con.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so you don't even know, like, oh, like book is crashing. You know, you don't know. Well, another interesting book I think that's kind of fun to talk about is this one right here, kind of a Disney grail. I'd love to have this book.
I agree. It's one that I've wanted, but I feel like it is now, like with sales like this, I just don't know if it'll ever be a book that I can get my hands on. I mean, it's just so expensive.
So this is 4-color comic 16 from 1941. It's the first Mickey Mouse comic book. And kind of a classic story if you know your Disney lore, the ink blob, sort of a famous story. And this one's selling 8.5. Is this highest on the census? For 57.
That I don't know.
Don't know.
But such a cool comic. And yeah, it is interesting. I'm kind of kicking myself that I think there was a 2.0 that sold last year for like $2,000. And it's like, that's like the type of thing where it's like, man, maybe I should have bought that because it's hard to, you know, finding
that almost feels like a steal now. Yeah. 25.
Yeah, kind of, right. And finding those entry level,
it was June. It looks like 25.20.
The highest is a 9. There is one 9, but there's only one 8.5 and one 9, so it's only one off from the top on census.
Got it.
So GPA showing a 9.2 sale in 2020.
I'm guessing that was probably the second series, and they maybe mapped it wrong. Just be.
Yeah.
I'm trying to find.
It's possible. Very possible, because that is confusing for some folks.
Well,
Myself
I do like both
included.
the images, but hard.
No, I'm wrong. That's weird. The GPA, their first. Usually, when you click on their first census one, it takes you to the one on the top, but that's actually not what they did. They took me to the other one. So yes, there is a 9.2, and but still the next closest is an 8.5. But there are two 8.5s.
Yeah, this one. I mean, it seems like a huge number, but like, wasn't the 9.2? It was
78K
in 2020, November 2020.
Yeah. So maybe this feels right, I guess. I mean, I don't know, but
it's always hard with top of census. Like, you never really know what type of multiple you get for that. You know, people will pay a lot to say they have the best copy that's out there.
Yep.
That is true. Well, an interesting book. I don't know. You guys got any other?
No, I mean, it's one that I would love to own someday, but I mean, if I got a chance again, maybe at 2,500, I'd probably be taking it. But I imagine that the lower grades are not going to stay down at that type of price.
Yeah. I would love to come across a copy of this book. You know, it doesn't have to be very pretty, but just an affordable price, because Walt Disney actually grew up in my hometown a little bit, and I'd love to donate one to the museum there at the hometown.
Awesome. That would be cool. Well,
that's my appeal, or its appeal to me anyway.
I pulled out this one.
This felt like a big sale to me. I don't even know the price history on this one offhand, but it felt like a big sale.
Oh, so I was gonna. Well, it is a big sale, but I was also gonna ask, like, is this book undervalued? I almost think it might be slightly undervalued. I think it's cool. I mean, again, but I have bad taste in characters, so I think it's just a cool, like, first team. So that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, so it looks like it was a record. It was a record in grade. But yeah, like, I mean, I recently picked up a copy of issue 4, you know, and I like issue 4 because I like them in motion on the cover, but I know some people really like them around the table. So, I mean, however you want to look at it, but it's, I don't know. I'm a little torn on the characters that are really not in use anymore. I mean, you've got some on here that are, but
you don't like the Hour Man?
Yeah. Like Hour Man, Sandman, Johnny Thunder. I mean, I know Dr. Fate was in the Black Adam movie, but it's just like a lot of characters that are just relatively obscure at this point, or it's not even that version of the character that's the popular one now. And I, you know, so it's one of those things where I'm a little torn on it. But it's a serious key from one of the major publishers. So I think it does deserve to command that type of value.
Yeah.
To me, it just screams the kind of weird stuff that James Gunn is going to love to play with, right? Like he's going to jump feet first into the sandbox and just have fun with it. And, JSA, some of the oddball characters, I feel like are just ripe for the picking for him. So I think it'll be interesting to see how that goes. And personally, I love Golden Age Sandman. So I would be perfectly fine with that character getting developed a little bit. I think Adventure 40 is one of my favorite comic covers ever. So it's also ridiculously expensive.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if any of these characters can kind of regain some limelight. I mean, I think Dr. Fate, already at least people are starting to know the name now. Like, say what you will about the Rock movie, at least it's like a name that James Gunn can use again, and then the Spectre, I think, is another interesting character that feels like the Spectre should be somewhat more popular. I mean, DC is just kind of like a 2-character company. I mean, Superman and Batman, but it really does feel like, I mean, even their modern comics, it's like, it's crazy. Like, how is there not like a Dr. Fate ongoing or like a Spectre ongoing? I don't know why it's so hard for them to keep those things going.
Well, I mean, talk about missed opportunities. You had, Zack Snyder in charge of the universe. There's no lights, just people getting slaughtered everywhere. That was made for the Spectre. How'd we miss out on that?
Yeah.
So,
interesting to watch. Interesting to watch. I think some of these books and like the Spectre ones, like the more fun comics and things like that, as time goes on, be curious to see. I think that these ones, of course, based on scarcity, will always make record sale prices. But it'll be interesting to see if there's like these big pop cultural pushes to them in the coming years. All right, Drew, what about this one? Did you make this?
I'll let Drew handle this one.
Yeah. Did you pick up this book?
No, I wasn't a buyer today. I was a very interested onlooker. I know as we were talking before it went up, we have our chat, and I'm like, I felt like 15 was more where this was going to land. So wound up about 20 points higher than where I expected it to. Not completely blown away. 8.0 is really just kind of a sweet spot grade where you hit that intersection of a nice presenting book and a price that, won't get you divorced and all that. But it's TMNT one's definitely been correcting over the last few months, which I'm fine with because I would really like to buy one this year. So I'm happy to see more sales so we actually kind of figure out where we're at. How quick are we falling? How far are we falling?
Yeah, because this is one, talk about the corrections and stuff. Like in January of 2020, it was a $7,200. It's like book, right? So it's interesting to see. Like, it tested 15,000, middle of last year, and then this seems like a really big number for this again. Like it's matching, or not matching. It's it had a little bounce.
Hopefully it was Dead Cat. But yeah. I know you guys have heard me say it before. I could have bought an 8.0 copy, cash money, $6,000 in, I think it was August of 2019. And this is where we're at now. So clearly I made a poor decision, but it'll be interesting. The thing is, there's still only 3,000 of these things total. And I just kind of have my talking points for TMNT. There are multiple generations of people who are in love with this, but it's actually a sale that is, it's above the one sale they had in grade last year. 2021 was just the record at 24,000. So we're about 25% down from the all-time record in grade. And ultimately, this book has always kind of been on an island by itself. You can't lump it in with the rest of the Copper Age books because this is the closest thing to like Star Wars and pop culture, TMNT is kind of the closest thing comics has to that in the modern era, where it was just such a force of nature. It blew up so quickly. And I mean, I don't know how many people collect Overstreets or have a lot of experience with Overstreet, but there was an extended period of time where Overstreet, back before we had things like eBay sales and all the tools we have now, Overstreet wouldn't even price the book. It's like, you want it, you pay what somebody's asking for, because the only damn way you're going to get it. Now obviously we have better tools, so it'll be interesting to see. Thankfully, there's a lot of copies I think that are going to be coming up. I know Comic Link hooked up with Kevin Eastman's uncle, who has like 19 freaking copies of the first print. That they're going to start auctioning off a lot of his stuff, and just the rest of the supply that's out there. I think I'm watching it very closely, because it's top of my list. But I think it's a good time to look at it, because we're in that awkward period between projects. Like, there's not a cartoon on Nickelodeon right now. There's some rumors about yeah. What did I miss?
No, it's just
oh,
we'll get to the
okay,
the Q&A part.
But no, I see it now. Yeah, I gotcha. But no, I just think it's a good time to buy. So I'll be interested in continuing to gather data and sell things to stockpile a ton of money.
Well, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to make a joke about, hopefully my book that I was stockpiling money for wasn't going to get pulled off the auction 3 hours before it goes.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting. You mentioned Eastman putting up.
I forgot to check that one. So yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. I was wondering what it sold for.
I just saw that this sold, and I think this was at like he's got a little personal kind of note, that he wrote.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
But $78,000. This is the original art for number 8, and this is pretty awesome.
And honestly, for what original art sells for, I am shocked that this only sold for $78,000. I mean, look at like most other, like, just like because this is a full color,
double
hand paint. Yeah, it's like it is a painted cover, and you've got other stuff where it's just like single page, single panel, or just the cover, black and white, with stuff like taped on for that doesn't look nearly as presentable. Going
white
for
out
hundreds
notes
of thousands. Like, I feel like this was, I think. I definitely don't know how to price original art at all, but this feels cheap to me. I was expecting it to go for a lot more than that.
And just, to look at it, and to be honest, it's not one of the stronger covers from those early issues.
No.
So that's still, I think, with that in mind, it's a pretty solid price.
It is striking because it is colored. To your point, Ryan, like, not a lot of the original art you get is... Well, one has this kind of canvas shape, like the portrait shape, landscape shape, because it's a double.
How big is this one? Do they say? Like, I'm just curious, like, for presentation purposes.
23 by 19.
This has a matted to 23 by 19.
Image is 17 by 13.
Yeah.
Okay.
From the estate of Richard Corbin.
Very cool to see stuff like that. And to put it in perspective, I pulled out some of the other ones. Here's like kind of a fun one, classic Secret War 7 cover, sold for $132. So it feels like, I mean, I don't know, Secret Wars is really popular. The Secret Wars 8 cover, or not the cover, the interior panel sold for, like, I can't remember what the number was. It was like over $1
million or something like that.
Yeah.
So Secret Wars, I think, is probably some of the most popular original art for people to get their hands on. But
random interior pages from like the Neil Gaiman Sandman run.
Yeah.
Sold for like 40,000 or 20,000, and I'm like, I'd take that cover, color original art over that.
Here's a Todd McFarlane ASM 321, just like a random page. Like, cool, it's Todd McFarlane, that's awesome, but same price, right?
Yeah, that's crazy.
So, for my money though, I think I would get the Journey into Mystery 107 first interior gargoyle panel. That's pretty fun.
Or you could get that Frazetta original art that went for $660,000.
Yeah, that's
ouch.
This was another cool one. Transformers the movie comic adaptation.
Yeah,
I didn't really even know that this was a comic.
I'll say the ones that I really like that I've seen recently, because I don't pay much attention to the original art. It's not in any type of budget that I would ever have, but sometimes it's fun to look at them. And it's the ones where, like we talked about this one, the Chamber of Chills 19, the ones that have the black background.
Oh, yeah.
Those look cool. Like I'll say those look really cool.
I will say when I went to San Diego Comic-Con, I was talking to Dinesh. And we were just kind of chatting and hanging out and stuff. And he is a really big original art collector, and he owns almost all of Darkhawk #1, all of the pages and the covers. And he might have been, like 4 drinks deep or whatever, but I just told him that it's like, hey, when I have the means one day, I'm going to knock on your door for that Darkhawk 1 original art cover.
Yep.
And he was definitely kind of joking about it, but like he damn near was like, "Oh, I'll just give it to you." I was like, "All right, let's do it."
Yes, please. Can I get that in writing? It's like record.
Yeah. How much of a flex would that be though? If I could put that like Darkhawk 1 original art, that would be awesome.
Oh my!
But at least I know who owns it. So
yeah, you know where it is.
All right, a few more interesting books to talk about before we should talk about the real big sale. But I thought maybe, I don't know if you guys have feelings on, obviously these are some of the marquee, obviously books that we always see sell. But maybe we can start with the Spider-Man one. This is the highest sticker price, right, of a comic book that went. We were talking a little bit on this one. Kind of a low sale, kind of a big sale. I guess how you want to look at it. What did you think, Ryan, about this one?
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say. I know we were talking about it. Like your perspective was that it's a record in price, which at this point in time, with things correcting, still stands for something. My perspective was I thought this one was going to probably go a little over $1 million, and so to me it felt a little on the weak side. But I mean, $810,000 for a comic is still a lot of money. Like, it's definitely air quoted weak sale. But I was thinking it was going to break $1 million based on where other grades had sold over this time period. But yeah, I mean, there were definitely,
you're not wrong.
There were some weak sales and there were some strong sales in this auction. It was not all like star power type, big auction numbers.
Yeah. Yeah. What did you think, Drew, about this one? I mean, like, that's kind of normal though, right? Like in any given auction, in any given sale, there's going to be bigs, winners and losers. Like that.
Exactly. I haven't really had a chance to track this one too much. I didn't pay much attention. It's a really nice looking copy. Honestly,
keep talking. I'm going to sign
in. Yeah. So I was going to make sure you weren't going to get your.
I don't want you guys using my heritage account and bidding for me.
We're going to get you some ultra rare dark.
Listen to his keystrokes. We'll figure out what the password is.
Right.
But the main thing I take away from that is just looking at it. It's a 9.2. It doesn't have any Marvel chipping, which is always a big plus with AF-15, but it's got that tanning around the edge.
Where, like right here,
like
kind of thing?
Zoom out, and you can just see along the right edge, and then at the bottom, especially.
Yeah.
And it's significant enough that it grabs the eye, or it definitely grabbed my eye. And
it's almost like maybe it's more of a dust shadow than tanning.
Yeah, and that's probably the better, an oxygen shadow or dust shadow. It definitely was in a stack, and that edge was hanging out, which is unbelievable that it's not chipped up any worse than it is if that was how it was. But I think when you're that premium of a price point, things like that will hold a book down. At that point, you're buying the book more than you're buying the grade.
Right. Right.
In my opinion. So that may be why it underperformed, just kind of, shooting from the hip here.
I'll say this is interesting because I talked about this in a recent video. I'm looking at the graders notes for it right now. And so one of them does say light shadow, full bottom of back cover, so we saw that, but it also says light cover tanning. And that's one of the things that I talked about in a recent video where I said, if you get hit with moderate cover tanning, I haven't seen anything recently go over a 6.5, but light tanning, I got a 9.2. And so yeah, the light tanning, you can get some really, really high grades with light tanning. But if they had hit it with moderate tanning, even though it's a beautiful book, it would have just been crushed.
Would have been the best looking 6.5 in the world.
I mean, and maybe it gets a 7. Maybe that's an example of one that can actually pull a 7 because it is a beautiful copy. But but yeah, no, it's interesting to see that. Yeah, they do have the light cover tanning on there.
Yep.
Yeah, it is interesting. I mean, yeah, I think you're right. I think maybe a lot of people were feeling like 1 million was the number to hit. Probably, after tax and fees, it's not too far off from 1 million.
Well, the fees are in there, so it would just be the taxes.
But like, Heritage is going to charge like 50 grand for shipping on this one.
That's what I'm curious. What is shipping for that book? or is it like
you fly out there?
Pick it up? But do you even want to carry that on a plane with you? Or you just like, you have to hire security detail to carry it with you? But I mean, that's like, if you watch that Instagram post that Todd McFarlane made when he was, I don't remember which con it was at, but when that guy walked in with the original cover art for Batman 423. And just like brought it out, and I'm like, what is that? Like God. $1 million? So you're just walking around the street. It was New York. That's right. Cause I was like, you're just walking around the streets of New York with that thing in a briefcase.
Yeah. That's just asking to get rolled, right?
Even if you have a security detail, I'd be a little worried about that.
Yeah. But I think kind of bottom line with this book is it basically guarantees that the next 9.4 that comes up is for sure going to go over 1 million. I think it's kind of set a basement level for those upper tier books. Of course, we don't have a 9.8 and the 9.6s are always fun to watch, but I think another 9.2 could outperform this one due to those things. And I don't know, it's weird living in a world where we've got so many books that are flirting with and crossing over into 7 figures.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, 'cause, I mean, it means there's got to be enough people out there with that type of money that are interested in purchasing them. I mean, that's also the interesting part. Or whether it's like groups of people maybe that are purchasing them. I don't know exactly, who's buying some of these things.
We just live in a brave new world where the nerds have finally capitalized and been able to bankroll being smart. And now we can, throw all our money at things like comic books.
Well, that's what's funny. Like somebody was like, I can't remember. I was like, it was like someone's comment on one of my videos one time where I was talking about like a record sale. Maybe I was talking about like Marvel Spotlight 5, like however long ago that was, the 9.8. And somebody was just like, who buys this stuff? And I'm like, dude, if I had this money, I would be buying this stuff. Like, who do you think buys this? Like the person who can just afford it. Like, why not? Like,
I mean, there are like over 1,000 billionaires in the U.S. alone. Like if there are a couple of those people that are like either comic collectors or pop culture fans, 100% they'd be bidding on this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Well, like I mean, maybe Tom Holland bought that copy. You know what I mean? Like, why wouldn't he buy one, at that point?
Gary V up there, flexing, pulling down highest graded.
Well, here's a book that I, of course.
So I assume you bought this, right?
I did buy this. Yeah. Shipping was not cheap. But this one is an interesting one too, because I was looking at the values for this and I had realized that, Avengers 1 in the 9.8 grade has been going down in value for the better part of a decade here. This book needed a win, it needed a turnaround here. And I just thought that this was really funny and interesting to talk about, where it's like, look at the trajectory of this book. Back in, Avengers 1, 274, Age of Ultron, 215, Infinity War, 194. With every new Avengers movie, this one had been going.
I blame Age of Ultron for all of that.
Yeah, Age of Ultron might have been the one.
By the time Avengers 25 comes out, you're going to be set, Swag.
Dude. I will be ready. I will be ready to make this purchase. But this seemed like a pretty big win for this book right here. This was definitely the biggest in this grade. But it's the Northland copy. What is Northland, Pedigree? You guys know?
I don't remember.
I don't remember the particulars of it either.
So if you guys don't know, it's probably worthless. Like, it's like you were talking about the pedigrees.
It's like a pedigree like that. Maybe it adds 5%, 10%, something like that. It's not. I think it's really it's the fact that you're just getting a 9.4. I doubt the price is much different for a 9.4 non-pedigree and that one. It's probably a little bit of a premium, but not a ton.
I kind of feel like a lot of the Silver Age pedigrees don't really get as much love or bump as the Golden Age ones, and maybe that's just my
Mint Hunter did a video on it, and he was doing, I think it was on Silver and maybe Bronze Age books that were pedigreed, and that's where he was showing something in that range where it's like they sold for more, but it wasn't anything like the Golden Age pedigrees. It was like, it was like 10%, maybe 20%, something like that.
That makes sense. Yeah. That makes sense. But we'll see what happens with this one. And then I guess the last one we should just talk about is this one right here. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But
I felt it was low.
Much?
I felt it was low. But now I agreed with what you said, that I think the 4.0 that went for like 800 or something, was that was this? Yeah, that
high.
Did feel high. So, I mean, I understand that, but this sale didn't feel as strong as I would have expected, because it's a nice looking copy too.
It is a nice copy, but is this true? Like, I feel like this is just anecdotal, but I feel like, why is there so many Superman ones?
What pedigree is it in?
Like,
what do you mean so many? Because I don't think there are very many, especially not
Nova Scotia.
I was just saying, like, so many felt like coming up for sale, and then like Comic Connect, like their auction this month has two of them in it, and it's just
I'm guessing it was that 8. What was it? Was it 8 million or 5 million? The $5 million sale for the 8.0. I'm guessing it was that. I think
just trying to ride the coattails.
Yeah, because you just look like from a macro view, right? If I just scroll down, you can just see, like, look at how many, like, in the last year prices there are. Like, it just feels like, maybe that $5 million sale is just kind of caused a lot of people to be like, all right, I'll take mine to market. But that still is a huge number. I mean, 4.0 was way too high maybe, and it was lower than this 720, but I don't know, like 50,000 difference.
The weird thing with Superman 1 is, like, it's the first issue of a very long running run, but it's not like Batman 1. Batman 1, you actually have 2 major first appearances in it. I don't think there's anything in Superman 1 that's like
the origin, I think, is really the only thing.
Well, do you think that there is value? Like, so I would just love to add like a top 10 Superman or a top 10 detective to my collection. And more so than that, or excuse me, top 10 Superman, top 10 Batman to my collection. And more so than that of, say, an early action or an early detective, simply due to the fact that I think that there's something to the effect of, like, it just says Superman right there.
I think that's the other thing this book has going for it. I think it was the first time that a character was spun off into his own title. So if you're like a comics historian, that might appeal to you.
Like if I was going to own, my example would be like, if I own Superman 2 or Superman 3,
which there's some great covers.
Yeah. Like, I'd rather own really one of those than like action, whatever else cover appearance early one that he has.
Action 6, where it's the gorilla.
Well, yeah, like, aesthetics aside, but
you know what, Jimmy Olsen, your cover sucks.
So I gotta say, like, I don't know what happened, but like the top like 20 of these Supermans and Batmans, like, just for the most part, awesome, amazing art. And then when you get to like some of those 30s and 40s and 50s, like number range, like some of those covers.
I say it's where they get campy. When I say campy, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, totally.
It's like they're ice skating, or they're riding a unicycle, or they're
crashing into a Christmas tree.
Yeah, it's all that stuff. And I'm just like, I don't have any desire to buy those books.
Yeah. Do you think it's just, I wonder if they're probably at that point, they were like, guys, we got to get the kid demographic, and they just went full on for the kids.
Didn't they know they were making books for us 80 years later?
Didn't they realize?
Why didn't they think of that?
Didn't they realize not putting characters on covers was going to significantly hurt the value of them later on?
I'm sure, that was their primary concern.
Yeah.
You want to talk about Batman? They pulled a story that would have been a first appearance out of a book to stick it on one that didn't even have the cover that went for it. Or I guess it would have been a second appearance, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
That second Joker story.
So what's interesting. So I share with you guys and people in the chat. I'm doing this in jest, and it's probably unscientific, but I'm genuinely trying to come up with like some kind of formula that can evaluate books, and like with just some kind of like, okay, here's like different categories how to evaluate, and let's come up with a number, and I'll call it the swag star system or something. But Batman 1 as Joker's first appearance. It's got a perfect score except for the one where it's like, oh, he's not on the cover, right? So it's like, say, Detective Comics 27 is a perfect scored book because of all the things involved. But this one,
and it's like, but this one does have an awesome cover. I mean,
one of the
top,
cover.
Batman covers.
It is amazing.
And the pinup on the back's pretty nice too.
Yeah,
that alone I've seen, I think, sell for like $8,000 or something like that.
Yep.
Just that cover.
I remember when I was young, you can buy it for only $2. I have a buddy who was selling one at a convention we were both set up at one year. It's like
just the back cover,
yeah,
the whole book, okay.
Just the back cover. It's like, yeah, that's pretty cool, but I'm not spending $2,000 on a back cover.
Yeah.
But yeah, that comment there, I love the cover for Tech 31, but I feel like I've really missed the boat on that one. Like it maybe was kind of in an affordability range a couple years ago, but now it's like, I mean, I don't know if you can get into that book for under 30 or 40,000 at this point. But
yeah, I don't think so.
Some of these, it's just they're so tough. But I mean, I don't know, for $2,000. You could own the back cover, or you could just save your money, and for $124,000 more,
that's right,
you could get a 1/8.
That's a book I would love to have. It honestly kind of breaks my heart a little bit because even restored copies, I don't think you can get into this book for under $50,000 anymore.
There was a Brittle Page 0.5 complete that sold on Heritage like a month ago, I think for like 35, somewhere in that range. And believe me, I was like,
that's pretty good. Yeah.
I think it was the same auction that had the suspense. And when I couldn't get the suspense, I was tempted to bid on that book. But like I've said, I'm okay with Brittle Page books, but most of the time it's because even though it says brittle, it's like a small section of the book that's brittle.
Yes.
It's usually a lot of times you'll see it's a very presentable copy. It's maybe like a corner. That one, it was crumbling in the case. Like you could see,
oh my God,
you could see it. And they even made a note about it. They're like, this one is really brittle.
Yeah.
So I'm like,
we're not going to put that.
I'm going to put in this thing that's
we got
to
make a new subcategory for this one.
By the time you get it mailed in from Dallas, you basically have a freaking jigsaw puzzle inside the CGC.
It's called dust. That's the
the
page quality.
Yeah. The problem is like if you bought it though, then you're $30,000 into a book that you have to keep. I mean, which is fine, but it's just it's funny thing where it's like once you get the book, then now you're stuck with it, which is not a bad thing. It's just
woe is me. I'm stuck with this Batman #1. However, will I recover?
I'm just saying, it's hard,
well, you sell all those books back on your wall there and you just have one.
Yeah.
I've thought about that, but then I was like, because I want to upgrade my Avengers 1. So I was like, guys, like, what if I just sold everything and just had one, 11-0 behind me? Like, would that be okay?
Can we just take a moment and talk about the days before Swag bought slabs and there were 0 slabs on the wall?
Okay.
I told him
let's just come on.
The first one, I'm like, it's going to creep.
I didn't change. The market changed. Okay. I'm sticking to this story here. All right.
Pointing fingers at the market now.
The market changed. There was a time back in my day.
Okay.
Where raw comic book prices.
One you bought? Was it the Avengers 4?
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Up there. But back in my day, where you could get the raw comic prices for a lot less than the slab ones.
Yes.
And then eventually everyone would just charge the slab price. And at that point,
why not? No point. Yep.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, if it's the same price for both, you might as well just buy the graded copy.
Yeah.
At least you're certain what you're getting.
And yeah, it's like I've had the experience now, right? Getting burned a few times where you're like, okay, like there's some risk in doing the raw stuff, but like I wouldn't there's a lot of books that like I would just prefer, like my Silver Surfer 3 is like in a case, but like aesthetically it bothers me that my 1 and my 4 are not slabbed. So I'm like,
just gotta send them in then. Problem solved, right?
Yeah, but like
beat the machine.
I don't need to send them in. I've literally thought about cracking that book just for aesthetic purposes. But I don't know.
I chuckle. I think I've told you guys this before, but I go to this show in Oklahoma every year. It's like the most old school show anywhere around here. And I love it. There's these old guys who will have the book that really comes to mind is the Detective 65. And it's in this My Light. I think it may even be like an archive or something. So it's, this old school of a guy. And the CGC label is just stuck in front of it because he'd cracked this book. And I'm like, well, why'd you? It's like a 7.0 Detective 65. It's like, well, why'd you do that? I don't like slabs. All right, man. You do, but oh my God.
Yeah, that's a bold move, like to just do it because you're like, I just don't like it. Like I joke about it, but I'm not actually gonna do it.
Well, and I've talked about that too, though. It's like you cannot pay that 7.0 price for that book if that thing is cracked out. You've got to inspect the book itself. Because I mean, I had one book I got that was a 6.5 with the label, and it came back a 6.0. I mean, fine, close enough. Yeah. But then there was another one I saw on a sale that I've talked about that was a 5.5, but I originally had claimed it on this live sale, and then I asked to see pictures after, but it was a raw copy that they had a 5.5 label, and I was like, can I see pictures of this thing? And it had like 4 or 5 inches of spine splits, and so like they were selling it as a 5.5 because it had a label as a 5.5. But I'm like, no, you need to reassess because clearly whoever cracked it out damaged it more, because you can't get a 5.5. It's like a 2.0. Right. And so like, that's all. Like, it's fine if you want to crack the books out, but just know, like, if you want to sell it, you can't ensure you're going to get that 7.0 price or that 5.5 price, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
As soon as you pop it, that grade is null and void.
Yep.
It is very true. All right. Well, I thought I would finish out sale discussions with the biggest sale of them all. And I just wanted to get your guys' thoughts really quick. I don't know if you guys have a lot of thoughts, but
I mean,
if you could have a 9.9 Spider-Man EMINEM for $5,700 or a Eternals 2 with a 30-cent price variant, which one do you take?
I would rather have $5,700 worth of Charmin Ultra Soft.
That's tough. That's a tough question. Books. Would I rather have that 30-cent variant? I'd probably take the 30-cent variant. I would probably take the 30-cent variant.
I might be tempted to take this one at that point. But I think, because how many 9.9s are there? Maybe
well, we don't know.
How many 9.9?
It was 50% of the census. When this book went up for sale. I haven't checked what the census is now. To see if it's changed.
I do think it's funny that because I had a video and I was talking about it, and at the time it was 5,700. We didn't get any more bids. So I don't know if I discouraged people from buying it. Buy what you like, but it definitely feels like I can't believe this got a 9.9. I don't like CGs. I don't care. They're trolling. That's crazy to me.
Well, because if you look at we were talking about that, the A cover has 0 9.9s, and it has it's like 1,000 copies graded or something like that. It has I'm just like, this one had 2 copies graded. It had 2 on the census, and it was 198 and 199.
It's so wild to me. I mean, you can see that. Like, we're starting to hit the point where I think the first few sales for the 9.8 were like, the first one was like 2,500, and then it was like 18, and then it was 17, and then it was like 14, and then it was 16, and then it was, whatever. And now I think 1,200 is where it's kind of starting to go, but I don't know, man.
Wow.
I don't know about this one.
I mean, I always say it's like, whatever you want to spend your money on, you spend your money on. That's fine with me. But in terms of like risk with this one, if you want it, wait 6 months. Just at least, because you'll be able to buy it in 6 months. Just wait and let's see what figure out what happens with it. See where it ends up. Maybe you do have to pay a little more, but it would be, history has shown us that normally these hot books correct back down.
Totally. And you can see like even the raw one still, I mean, I don't know, maybe this one is damaged, but like this is the same kind of roughly around the same price that people were paying for when it first came out. Like and the books weren't even in hand. You know, people were paying whatever, anywhere from 170 to 200. So it's like, to that point again, like, yeah, again, I think this is maybe the price, and 6 months from now, this will probably still, at least for now, be the price. So like,
I think it's going to retain value. It's just a question of how much value is it going to retain. I don't think this is going to like $1 book or anything like that, but you know, 2,500 for a 9.8, probably not.
Yeah, totally. The other one I wanted to talk about was this one right here, which these ones were starting to finally hit eBay. And I don't want to.
So are there many? So I checked this too a couple days ago, but everything was still pre-sale sales. So have there been any like new, like where they're actually in hand sales?
So here's one, right? In theory.
Okay.
In hand. Yeah.
$890. Here's a $1,000. This seems 3 bids, $936. I don't know if this is an in-hand picture. Maybe it is or isn't. But it seems to be, I mean, like this one maybe looks like an in-hand, 900. So I can't remember exactly what the retail price was. I think it was actually 150, might have been the retail price. And now these things are anywhere from 800 to, you know, 1,000. But I think like, so I wanted to, I mean, we don't have to talk about this book specifically, but like, I feel a certain way about this one with CGC's involvement in it, because they worked with the dealer to grade 300 9.8s. And then they were going to destroy the rest. And then in theory, we're
supposed to get a video of that.
We're supposed to get some video with that, but it's like, again, there's no way we would ever get a video, because like how could they have a video of them like burning 700 copies? Like that's going to bite them in the ass. Like, you know, like, oh, look at these people wasting paper, just burning you know, like there's no way they're going to film that and provide that video. And then
you can't tell me burning that gold foil is not toxic.
Yeah, totally.
Now, the thing that I was surprised, I'll say the thing I was surprised about with this one is that my understanding of how this was done was that basically they sent in, you know, these, I think it was 1,000 copies, pre-screen 9.8. And then, so they had to pick out, you know, they had to get at least, you know, 300 9.8s, the rest get destroyed. But pre-screen 9.8 doesn't mean 9.8. It means 9.8 or higher. And so these are foil covers. I was sure we'd end up getting 9.9s and 10s, but there are 0 9.9s and 10s on the census. It is 300 exactly 9.8s. So did they find 9.9s and 10s and destroy those? Well, or are there like 9.9s and 10s in here that they're just like, nope, give it all 9.8s? And that was something I didn't like. I felt like it should have been 3, because there's no way you have 300 foils and there's no 9.9 or 10. Fresh. Those things are usually 9.9s and 10s.
That's such a great point. And so it like, it can't be, I mean, I'm sure that they graded it. I'm sure they grabbed it. They looked, you know, they did the thing like, it's 9.8, but clearly they were not like, if we find a 9.9 or a 10, we're going to pull that out. It was just like, let's just get 300 of these. And
I'd say it's probably pass fail. Yeah. It's a 9.8 or it's not.
Right. My thing about this is like, I just like, what is CGC? Like, cause are they a third-party body that is grading collectibles, or should they have a hand in creating a scarce collectible? And effectively, that's what they're doing. And I mean, again, however they define themselves as a business is up to them. But as far as I understand it, like they shouldn't have a hand in that, in my opinion.
For me, for the description on how I heard how this was all handled, I was fine with their involvement in it. Originally, I wasn't, when it was like you had that the mock-up that had CGC on like the back cover, you know, like their label.
Think it's still on there.
I thought they removed it.
Let's see. Let me see if I can find.
Or they changed the wording. It was like presented by CGC or something like that. That's what it was. They changed the wording where it sounded like they were. It was their variant. So yeah, okay. So that's what it's exclusively graded by where it was instead before. I don't remember what the exact wording was, but I think it was exclusive variant presented by. It was under the same thing as the BTC.
Which, by the way, somebody needs to crack this.
Yes, I was just going to say that. I'm like, we need to start a GoFundMe for somebody to do that.
but yeah, so like once they changed that, I was fine. And I felt like I felt like it was a reasonable business model. You know, if they want to create where you want to confirm that there are only X number of copies that are available. I thought, you know, it's not necessarily something I'm interested in, but I thought it was okay from a business standpoint. I did not have any like moral issues with them as a grading company type situation with this one. Because I mean, like if they sent in 1,000 and none of them as long as like if none of them, if they didn't hit 309/8 and they said sorry, then that's fine. You know, like as long as that's the approach they're taking, then I'm okay with it.
I guess so. Yeah. What do you think, Drew?
I'm disappointed because I thought it was a reprint of Superman 75, and I was going to say, you know, congratulations to them for actually making a copy of Superman 75 that somebody gave a crap about. But now I see it's a 30th anniversary special, so I care even less. I'll be straight with you guys. I have just like turned my brain off anytime I see one of these books or one of the damn EMINEM books. I don't even care. I give them zero energy. So apologies to anybody in the chat or, you know, subscribers that's disappointed, but I'm gonna put myself in a different position and something I actually have some sort of interest or concern about.
Yeah. I mean, my feeling again is like, I very much doubt that these prices that they're selling for right now, as they hit the secondary market at like 890, 900, etc., are going to hold. There's no way, because look, if you're somebody who got this and someone in the chat pointed out, it was 175 retail. If you got this for 175 and you can sell it for 900, like you're going to do that. Like,
oh yeah.
Of the 300 people who bought it, yeah, maybe there's going to be 20 to 60 people that generally are just, I want this. But like, I mean, I think most people bought this like maybe with the intention to flip it. And once those people flip, I have to assume that the price is going to be less than.
Yeah, I agree with what you and Ryan talked about earlier. You know, in 6-12 months, it's going to be a race to the bottom, and you know, you'd probably be back around 175, 250, you know, somewhere like that. It's one of those books. It was made for flippers. You know, I remember buying. Do you remember when they were releasing some of those like unpublished Michael Turner covers? A few years ago, they do like sets. Like, hey, we got this. The Harley Quinn one was the one I got. I think it was the second one. All it is people, you know, sitting there trying to buy them out when they offer them to flip and make money. And I did. Right. It was great. So I get it, but.
I need to wait, hold on. I didn't prepare, but I'm going to find some dolphin clip that I get to play.
There's a whole movie. It's called Flipper.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
But I mean, this is just, you know, the latest version of that. And I mean, if that's the game you want to play, go on, you know, have fun. But yeah, it's I wouldn't put the word investing anywhere in the same paragraph with a conversation about this book, let alone the same sentence.
Yeah. I genuinely agree with you. I think you're being very honest, and I'm trying to be diplomatic about how I talk about it. But you know, I'll just finish with, you know, it's not for me either. And I still have a little issue with how CGC goes about it, maybe because I'm just being idealistic, that I just feel like they should just grade a thing and not have a hand in how, like, I see them as a company that grades and preserves collectibles. They shouldn't create collectibles, but that's, I mean, you know, maybe the terms of their business is different. But.
So what's the next question? It's like, what changed that led us to this point? Is this BlackRock? Is this?
Well, they have to make more. They have to grow, right? They have to make more money, and like if they don't expand their business, then they'll eventually die. Like that's just the nature of a company, right? So, like, I mean, maybe they'll publish their own titles at some point. You know, like why not? But I mean, I guess there's a little bit of a gray area to my. Because you know they do the signature signing series, and that's kind of maybe the same thing that they're kind of diving their toes into collectibles, but I don't feel as bad about that one. So maybe I'm wrong in my perspective of it, but I don't know. This one just feels.
I can go on a tangent on that one too. I mean, just
let
me know what you need me to rant about.
The stage is yours.
Oh, okay. Well, here, I'll give you the short version. The whole reason people used to like to have their comics signed was because they got to meet the creator and, thank them for their work, share stories, tell them what it meant to them, this, that, and the other. Now, we just want them to sign the damn book so we can sell for more money. It's crap. It's just, all it does is bog up the works. It slows them down there. They get to make money, which from a business perspective, I understand. I can respect it, but it's hollow. It's counterproductive to people actually wanting to have comics graded, as far as like the turn time stake to it. And I don't like it. Yeah.
I mean, that kind of ties into, like, I guess, when we had all these like con exclusives and stuff where, it kind of ladders back in where it's like, it used to be that a con exclusive was a little memorabilia that you can just kind of be like, oh, that was fun. I went to San Diego and I had this little thing and something to remember the con and the experience. And now it's like,
well, it's like, then what happens though is that they became collectible, like they became valuable later. And then people are like, oh, that's actually valuable. So let's make a whole bunch of them.
So, like Wizard San Diego Comic-Con edition, like that one, which is wild.
Yeah, because I think that X-Men 510, I think the X-Men 510, that super expensive one, was a con exclusive.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right.
The white background.
The Psylocke, yep.
Yeah, probably. And the only, is that one of the only con exclusives that truly is like a grail in that sense?
I don't know about that. Because you also have like the first appearance of oh my gosh, Hellboy is that San Diego
too. Yeah.
And so I mean, there are some other things that are in that category, but that's definitely that's got to be the most expensive one.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting world. And if you want this thing, this Death of Superman gold foil, buy what you like. Definitely buy what you like. But I thought it was interesting that they were coming to market and starting to see
how much it sucks taking a picture of that book. Like everybody's
everyone's phones right here.
It's like I always have problems with like dark covers, like when I'm trying to take pictures of them, but like that one, see that it's just like, like that guy's whole face looks like he's on the one down there.
Hopefully everybody's fully clothed as they take pictures of these books.
That would be interesting. Looking for like weird reflections in CGC like case pictures.
I don't know. Like I see some pressable defect right down there. I don't know if that's a 9.8. You guys see that?
Someone's going to return it. Guarantee
someone's going to see a little bit of
it's not the only one. I wonder if that's just the way it's sitting in the inner well. I saw a comment that said people were saying there were some inner well issues. So if it's
a lot of times when those books get slabbed, they get that little wavy look to it. And it doesn't actually damage it or anything. It just doesn't look as nice.
Yeah. I mean, we all remember Franken slab, so it's not nearly that bad.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember those?
I don't know what Franken slab is.
It's the not so tongue-in-cheek name. The community started calling CGC's first new generation of slabs. So when they went from the old wells, the original CGC wells, and came out with the new, like, more crystal clear ones, the way they were sealing them was there wasn't an inner well. They were actually taking the books and pressing them between two sheets of mylar inside of the outer well, and books started rippling, and there was really weird shit going on. That's where your Mutant rings first showed up, because it was the contact between the pressed mylar and the outer wells, and they eventually went away from that, and that's how we got the inner well back. But there was a period where CGC was putting out slab books in the new outer well, so it's that same like really crystal clear look, but there's not an inner well in it. And if you have one of those, for God's sake, resubmit your book and get it the hell out of there.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think that those were all like kind of the big sales. What did you guys think? Were there any other ones that just kind of stood out to you, Ryan? Of just
yeah. So one was that I don't know if you want to pull it up. If you look for number 91039, it was that little dot number 1, which that one was crazy to me. I mean, I get it. It's the first appearance of Richie Rich, but like, how many people really like care about Richie Rich now?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, $78,000.
I mean, are there Harvey fanatics out there who, I gotta have the best one?
I mean, I know it's an expensive book, like, but man, like,
is this the highest on Census?
If you scroll down, it'll tell you in the notes. Let's see. Not 1 in 9.6, none higher. It's the single highest graded copy. Next closest is a 9.2.
Yeah, this one is interesting. It does sort of, beg that question of like, when you think about like, all right, I feel pretty confident comic books will be around 10 years from now. I feel pretty confident they'll be around 20 years from now. I feel pretty confident they'll be around 30 years from now. When we go to 40 and 50 and 60, I think Golden Age will still have value because there's a historical precedent for it. But like, are there going to be Delato cover holders in, I don't know, 19 or 2070? I'm not sure. But like, this is one of those interesting topics to talk about where it's like you have a character like Richie Rich who like these pop culture characters can fade out of,
as I say, like Richie Rich fans may not be around for
of culture, like they can totally fade out of culture. This is why, like, I think characters like Batman and Superman, they feel pretty grandfathered in. Like, I'm pretty confident, like, there will be Batman stuff 100 years from now. But yeah, Richie Rich, man, I don't know. It's a tough one.
Yeah, telling you, there's a whole generation that grew up with that Macaulay Culkin movie. We're going to keep it alive.
Yeah. It's like, I don't know, like how many Mighty Mouse holders are there out there? Like Richie Rich isn't even on the cover. I mean, come on.
Yeah, is it the first appearance of Little Dot? I don't know. I have no idea.
I think there's more than one first.
Little Lotta. It's first appearance of Richie Rich and Little Lotta.
Yeah. Little Dot. Maybe it's her first cover appearance.
But yeah, no, I mean that one stuck out to me just because I feel like Richie Rich is just going to become a more and more, like you said, kind of like obscure character that nobody really cares about, and that's a lot of money. But that was one that stuck out to me.
I mean, if you want it, you want it. You're like the guy's like, I've waited 90 years to be able to afford this copy.
Finally.
It's possible.
I will be buried with it. They're just that person.
There no longer is a 9.6. It goes with me. Cracks it out, sends the label into CGC.
Oh. Talk about a book that would have a story.
Well, I guess we're in this new year. I guess I made that video where I was talking about predictions going into 2023. And I'd love to hear if you guys just have thoughts like going into this new year. Like what do you think is going to happen? Are we back to like whatever was happening in 2019 kind of thing, or like 2018 as for not in terms of values, but just in terms of like, people want what they want, and Spec is kind of a thing, but not crazy. Like, it's not like instant flip on trailers and stuff. Like, what do you think is coming this year in terms of comics?
I think it's going to get more back to normal, like what it was pre-comic boom. I mean, 2022 was still a big chunk of that year was like, you sold a lot of books going up. I think a lot of us thought it would end in 2021 and because a lot of things had started to correct near the end of 2021, but there was a resurgence in early 2022. I mean, I'll say like my own experience from sales, like this month, like January's definitely been slower. I've seen that from my sales. It often is a little slower usually, but it's just something I've noticed. I mean, one of the big things I have noticed is that you don't get these spikes anymore really with character announcements and things. And it's because I think it's probably because most books are still too elevated to justify it.
They already got their
they have their spike.
Yep.
But yeah, I like it when things are predictable, you know, when it's like the lines just kind of like moving and you have some range around it and that kind of thing. Like the last couple of years they're very tough because you don't really know what's going to happen. Are you trying to just like sell to beat the drop, you know, or are you afraid to sell because it might go higher, all that kind of thing. And so I'm fine with a return to normalcy. The whole question about the economy and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know, like maybe things turn around and prices stabilize a little more. But I think we're going to generally see prices returning back to where they'd been, and kind of like the comic boom didn't happen for most books, not all books, but for a lot of books.
Yeah. What about you, Drew? What are your thoughts going in the year?
I tell you, just planning like how I'm going to approach shows and stuff this year. I think it's going to be, because I generally view things like there's wall book years and there's discount bin years. I think this is going to be a discount bin year. I think I'm going to see a lot of people maybe not shop on the wall quite as hard, digging into the boxes, the discount bins, especially. Just transitioning from picking up the big ticket books. Maybe, you know, their budget's taking a hit, or they're playing a little more conservative because everything else in life's more expensive, but still working on longer runs or building stories out, just that kind of a thing. So I think it'll be more of a volume versus a big ticket kind of year.
Right.
So that's my kind of ideal thoughts there. I kind of welcome a return to normalcy here, just getting away from it. I think part of what we're seeing is maybe some of the new money that came in is kind of starting to filter its way out. You know, it's just, you actually have to try hard or do a lot of research or just flat out be lucky to kind of hit whatever kind of spike or whatever it is. You can't just throw anything against the wall in 2023 and expect it to stick like it did in 2020 and 2021. So I think it's just, we're going to kind of reset a little bit, and people come into the hobby like they tend to. People will go out of the hobby, and I think we'll just kind of play it by ear and see where we go from there.
Yeah. I think it'll probably be a good year for vendors and LCSs that run their stores well. I think a lot of businesses will go out of business because of economic factors, but I think if they run their store well, I think they'll be good, because I think the only way, like, there's always going to be people that still want to like find that money or flip or whatever. And I think the only way you can do that is by like the treasure hunting aspect now, right? Yeah. Like, you just have to be able to find a key book for cheap, and then that can be where you can flip it. So I think people digging back in those bins or buying those collections or finding gems there, where it's like, you know, you can't like, maybe I can't just like buy a Mephisto book like on Heritage and then expect to flip it if Mephisto shows up later this year, which maybe he will. I don't know. But like that seems like hard to do for sure.
Yeah. I'll be interested to see if some of the behaviors that LCSs and dealers, vendors have picked up in the last few years continue. Like, you know, is it going to continue to be worthwhile for LCS owners to look everything up on eBay before they sell it? You know, or are we going to get back to a point where they trust their own prices?
Right.
You know, has that ship sailed? Is this the new normal that's going to continue on forever now? So I don't know. It'll be interesting.
Yeah,
well, I hope so. And I think part of the reason that happened was because of all these like random spikes, and maybe there's not as much need for it, you know, as if things do return to more of where prices are relatively stable. I mean, when you look at the long term for a lot of comics, I mean, they're relatively flat. I mean, it's generally an uptrend, but it's relatively flat. It's like this whole tripling and that kind of thing.
It's not healthy. It's not healthy for that to happen.
Well, we talked about it a lot tonight, where it's like, if it's too high, then everyone has to want to sell now, and that's actually not good. But
yeah, I had a thought and it's gone.
Oh, sorry, that was my fault.
No, it's all good.
I was.
If it was good enough, it'll come back.
I can't wait for dealers and especially like old school like LCS owners and stuff to go back to the mentality where, like, you know, for them, like, you ever get those like dealers or store owners where it's like anything under a 7.0 is just like a piece of shit to them, you know.
Dollar bins, get it
or
out
like,
of here.
Yeah, or just like anything, like, you know, for the most part outside of like Spider-Man, every character is crap. So it's like,
I mean, these are facts.
I can't, yeah, exactly. But I can't wait for them to just be like, I don't know, like, yeah, you want this like FF49 for $100? I don't care, just take it. You know, like that's the attitude I'm looking forward to again. You know?
Yeah, I think we may still have some stress in dealers and LCSs, especially if they've been. I know, like around here, there are comic collections just falling out of the sky, basically in the Midwest right now. But I think if people haven't adjusted their buying strategies, or they're still over leveraged on what they bought in the peak market where you had to pay out a butt ton of money, there's still people with some ground to cover there, especially the bigger dealers. You know, if they were paying peak of the market prices to keep some of the major keys on their wall. So it may take us some time to get through some of that, but hopefully it clears up sooner rather than later.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, boys. Well, we've been going for a few. I don't know if you guys have any final thoughts, but I figure maybe we could start wrapping it up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, no, this has been great. I'm glad we get to. I mean, I know we talk in chat all the time and that kind of thing, but it's always nice to get to talk in person.
Yeah.
Likewise. Yeah. Well,
the sad thing is 90% of this conversation probably would have happened tonight. It just would have been written.
Yeah, that is 100% true. 100%. Well, maybe if in case you guys don't know, or in case the people in the chat don't know, which I think that they probably do, but in case they don't, maybe Ryan or Drew, you can tell people where they can find you and who you are and what to do to learn more about your comic book knowledge.
Stuff and things.
So Automatic Comics on Instagram, same basic name, Automatic Comics on YouTube, and yeah, go check me out on there. I usually put out like 3 videos a week, give or take, depending on how much time I have to make these videos. But I cover all kinds of things. I do I watch heritage sales, and so I have commentary on those. I do live streams, try to do at least one a month, and unboxings, that kind of thing. And I tend to focus on, like, you notice behind me, I've got a bunch of these old like Marvel mystery comics. I have a lot of Golden Age stuff. A little more heavy on the Golden Age, but also silver and bronze and that kind of thing every once in a while. And I've been dipping my toes into buying some smaller collections. I don't want the time required for managing collection purchases is rough, but it's been fun, and I think it's fun content for the channel and everything. And I think people seem to enjoy that. So yeah, come check out the channel, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And you just had a video talking about some of the Golden Age auctions, which I don't think we covered. So you guys should go watch that. It just came out. And Drew?
Yeah. Again, like at como.comic.books on Instagram. I post stuff there sometimes. I'm better about it some days than others. Channel, Como Comic Books. Usually try and do weekly videos. I've been getting my butt kicked lately. So apologies to everybody. I'm going to shoot one probably later tonight, but I should have some content coming out. Just past 9,500 subs, so kind of getting the 10K giveaway squared away. So I know the boys have kind of got a preview of some of the things I'm looking at adding to that. So if you want to win some free stuff, go sub to my channel if you haven't already, and maybe we can get you some cool stuff. But other than that, I'm just trying to get through this massive collection and get ready to hit the road later this year.
Yeah, I still that'll be good for Toddy right here, because he was asking any claim sales from you guys coming up. Well, you're going to be doing some road stuff, right? True.
Yeah. Right now, I'm officially booked for 2 shows. I've got Planet Comic-Con in Kansas City, which is March 17th, 18th, and 19th. And then Indiana Comic Convention is in Indianapolis, and that's May 6th, 7th, and 8th, or something like that. It's the first weekend in May. Both big 3-day shows, and should be pretty cool. But I'm eyeballing a couple other ones, possibly Des Moines, possibly Memphis. So getting out a little bit this year. I'm going to try and do bigger shows as opposed to a bunch of smaller shows. I picked up a consignment collection. I've been posting some books on Instagram that are for sale on my website. So
nice.
Not a claim sale, but a few books going up there. Some nice stuff.
Well, I think you guys should do YouTube claim sales. But what about you, Ryan? Have you ever thought about that? Flexpodimus is right here.
I've thought about doing like an Instagram claim sale. I feel like it's something I probably should do at some point, but I also, I generally, the way I normally sell is I normally sell on eBay. And I like the fact that I just sell a few books, maybe like at most like 5 or 7 a week. And then I just have to pack 5 or 7 a week. I don't have to pack like 30 books in one night because that is not enjoyable to me at all.
If you did it, it's going to be a lot more than 30.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, like, as someone who has done the YouTube claim sales, which to your question, Flex, I'll probably do one at some point later on, but I don't have any immediate plans to do it, but yeah, they do take a lot more work than eBay.
I just like to ask Mickey questions about doing claim sales and then never actually do it. Yeah. I'm really good about inquiring about them.
You guys should.
I have looked at like buying like those little like racks, like the magazine type racks that I would have to set up to put the books up on.
Yeah.
And, that kind of thing. But I haven't pulled the trigger on it yet. I feel like I'd also have to get my wife involved for like watching chat and stuff. And I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it's okay. You can just give me one of your Marvel Comics books and I'll do the chat for you.
Yeah.
That's totally fair.
Fair trade. All right. Well, thanks again, guys, for hopping on the stream. And thanks to everyone in the chat for hanging out tonight. And we will see you all in the next stream.
Later.
Peace out.
Bye-bye.